Get it, we're going live, bit of tipping action, and we are on. Hey guys, how you going today? On BKRsport, we are live as we're going to be talking through all of the rest of round one. Obviously, this is a continuation of round one after we saw the Las Vegas games where the Newcastle Knights won 28-18 over the Cowboys and the Canberra Bulldogs won 15-14 over the Dragons. Massive Las Vegas round where there were two good games. One of them, was a bit boring or so for the first 50 minutes, but the final 30 plus extra time was incredible at that Bulldogs-Dragons game, and Knights-Cowboys was a really exciting game throughout for mine. I really did enjoy it. So I loved Las Vegas, and you'll usually find the biggest haters of Las Vegas are the ones who've never been to it. If you've been to it, you understand how amazing that event is and how much fun it actually is, and how great it is for the game. It's people look at the growth factor in regards to America as the reasoning behind it. There are so many different reasons behind why Las Vegas is a thing. But look, to get into today's video, we are actually going to be changing these tipping streams to the videos probably from next week. I do want to do a more deep look into the games and look through all the team lines and whatnot, rather than me walking around the city at the moment, which is what actually was voted for. People want to see me walk around the city and talk about it all, which we will do. But for the time being, we're just going to slap through it here today, talk through all of the games. We've got the Storm versus the Eels, the Warriors versus the Roosters, the Broncos versus the Panthers, Sharks versus the Titans, Manly versus the Raiders, and the Dolphins versus the Rabbitohs. Now, if you aren't watching this live with us, there will be timestamps for each game that we do talk through, so that you know exactly, because we'll probably be here for about an hour or so talking about all these games. So definitely look at the timestamp if you're looking for a specific game. If you haven't joined our tipping group just yet, now the winner of this tipping group, the BKRsport tipping competition, will receive a merchandise pack from their team at the end of the year. That tipping comp link is in the description. I'm currently 2 from 2. I am currently on top there, but that's only been the two games. It is quite funny to see a couple people down here with that Cowboys and Dragons tip, but then again, one of them, Nathan, I'm pretty certain is a Dragons fan, so that one, I feel like that's Nate J, Dragon Whisperer. I feel like that's Nate J that we do see here in the chat. So yeah, right now, sorry to call you out there, guys. Sorry to call you out, but that's what we're going to be doing. That is what we're going to be doing throughout the season. We'll have a bit of fun with this tipping competition. So if you haven't checked it out just yet, it is in the pinned comment. Go and join in. I don't know if you get the points for the first two rounds, but with that being said, you might, to be fair. I'm not too sure if you do or you don't, but go join it, and then you'll be ready to rock and roll for the rest of the season. And there's plenty more games. Even if you don't get the points for the first two rounds, there's plenty more games this year, and we're only two games deep. Now, in regards to the ladder, obviously you do have the Newcastle Knights, who are on top after the first couple of games. They, with their win, and the Bulldogs in second. The Tigers, they have the bye this round, so they won't be playing. They will finish in ninth after this round is finished up, and the Bulldogs get the bye next week, so they're going to get a nice little 4 points, even though it was very controversial, their win over the St. George Illawarra Dragons. But guys, do me a favour, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new around here, get into the chat, let us know what you're thinking about the games when we're talking about them. Try to keep the chat in regards to the game at the time that we're talking about, because we will go through all of them, so it will get its time to speak about. If you aren't watching live, get into the comment section, let us know your thoughts. The way these go is that I will go into the game, I'll read through the two team lineups, I'll give you my thoughts and feelings in regards to what we probably should be seeing from my perspective. I'll give you my prediction, I'll go make my tip, and then we'll get into the chat and talk a little bit about it with you guys. So alright, let's get into the chat, see what you are saying to get us rocking and rolling. Azzy D says, can you confirm you don't get the points for first games if you join late, but I'm confident enough, I can confirm you don't get the points for first games if you join late, but I'm confident enough to give away a little head start. Okay, well, look, we'll see if I'm tipping the Panthers or the Broncos this week, because I know you're going to be tipping the Broncos, so maybe I should tip the Panthers just so that I can have that 50-50 split against you, especially after your performance against Hull, who ended up losing by 56 points to 6 in Las Vegas to Leeds, and also lost 19-18 to York. I don't think they've won a game in their actual league at the moment, AZD, but it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, so obviously you don't get the points for the first two games, but it's only two games of eight games times 27. Well, not times 27, because there's a couple of bye rounds and whatnot, but there's plenty more games to catch up. But can you beat me? You think you can beat me? You think you can beat me? Gee whiz, mate. I'm 2 from 2. I'm never going to get a tip wrong ever again. I might never, ever get a tip ever wrong again. Look at that. Beautiful. Right on top of the table. Beautiful. He's flying. He's absolutely flying. I may never, ever get a wrong tip ever Again, Brighton says Titans W, get around it. Highlander says Warriors win. Dasmo says Dogs Knights grand final. Yep, you are drunk. B. Lloyd says Broncos versus Roosters grand final. Stephen Dingo says love this, would be great every week. And B. Lloyd says up the Broncos, hopefully we beat the Panthers. Yeah, well, that's going to be a belter of a game. Obviously, as you guys know, we'll be live for every single game of rugby league this year. Tomorrow, we do have Storm versus Eels and a belter. But look, honestly, every game this round should be a really good game for all its different reasons. Like when you're talking about Storm Eels, that's been the first game for a few seasons now. They're really building that to probably be the Vegas game next year as the opener. Because they just, have seemingly really liked this Storm versus Eels matchup. The Eels have a lot of positivity coming into this season. The Storm, they are off the back of 2 grand finals. Yes, they've lost both of them, but at the end of the day, they're off the back of 2 grand finals. Should be a good game there, in my opinion. Warriors and Roosters, that is a hard one to predict because the Warriors had a good year last year, whilst the Roosters, they are looking to have a massive year this year with Cherry Evans signing. They've got Sammy Walker, James Tedesco. They've got a whole bunch going for them at the Sydney Roosters. And the Warriors, I don't know what they do, man. I do feel like they're going to have a bit of a drop-off, but at the end of the day, they are at home. They can get their season off with a bang, and which is not what they did last year. They actually lost the Vegas game last year to the Raiders before putting in their good work at the beginning part of the season, but that does have good game all over it. This next game should be, honestly, the game of the weekend. Broncos versus the Panthers at Suncorp Stadium. Usually, and you'll see this on every one of my tipping videos, usually the game that you think is going to be the best game ends up being an okay game. One of the 2 good teams playing each other. One team is just too good for the other, and they win by a decent little bit. Sometimes you'll see an unbelievable game that you're expecting, but for the most part, when you look at a game that looks like it's going to be an absolute belter, it doesn't end up being the belter, and then the game that you think was going to be absolute shithouse, like for example, like a Sharks-Titans from most people's perspectives, that game then ends up being the really good one. It's really weird how it does work out. But look, Broncos-Panthers has everything going for it. Sharks versus Titans, obviously Sharks are heavy favourites there, but the Gold Coast have a lot of positivity coming into the season. Did well in the pre-season. They're under a new coach now, Josh Hannay, re-tinkled with the organisation. A lot of positivity coming out of the Gold Coast at the moment. So hopefully we can see a big one there. Manly Raiders, obviously Jamal Fogarty going up against his old team at the Canberra Raiders. He's the new man for Manly. We don't know how Manly are going to look. They're going to have Jamal Fogarty and Luke Brooks and instead Cherry Evans and Luke Brooks and Joe Walsh is knocking on the door. Raiders are a fantastic 4-pack and backline. It's going to be, I feel like, a good game there, especially considering I believe that Manly Seagulls are favourites, which I'm actually really confused with, to be honest with you. But we'll get into that. And then the Dolphins, Rabbitohs, that could be literally anything. Though that literally could be absolutely anything. That could literally be anything, that game. I don't even know how to call that one. But all right, let's get into the first game here, guys. Like I said, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new around here. We're going to go straight on into the Melbourne Storm versus the Eels. Come in the chat what your thoughts are in regards to this game. This is going to be at Amy Park in Melbourne between the Melbourne Storm and the Eels. The Storm team, Sualauvi Farlongo, with the wingers being Will Warbrick and Nick Meaney, centres of Jack Howarth and Moses Leo. The 5'8" is Cameron Munster, with the halfback being Jerome Hughes. You got the front row forwards of Stefano Utuikamanu and Josh King, with the number 9 being Harry Grant. He is the captain. Back row, you've got Joe Chan and Ativalu Lisati, with the 13 being Alex McDonald. And then the interchange is Tyron Wishart, Cooper Clark, Tuikami Kamitha, Davin Mawali, Preston Con, and Suilaungi Tui Malatu Brown, with the reserves being Lazarus Valepu, Angus Hinchy, and Trent Tolau. Coaches Craig Bellamy. As you guys know, there is a 6-man bench this year, not a 4-man bench. That's why you're seeing those extras there. I believe you can only use 4 of the 6s in interchange, but it does give you more versatility. Look, when you look at this Storm team, obviously you're never going to have any questions in regards to their spine. Yes, look, they lost Ryan Pappenhausen at the end of last year, little mama, little puppy, which was a huge blow to them. But at the end of the day, Sualauvi Faungalongo is an amazing play coming up. He's done well for Samoa. And when he gets his opportunity for the Storm, he usually does well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do as the bona fide fullback now, the number 1 fullback. That won't be changing. Munster and Hughes, there is no question marks there, and Harry Grant is the clear best hooker in the game. There is a gap to Blake Brayley, and then there's probably a gap from Blake Brayley even further down. The number 9 isn't exactly a specialty, like a special position as a collective basis right now in comparative to other positions, which I guess we do see on a frequent basis. But about 5-6 years ago, we did have a lot of teams having more so that really key hooker that they were all in a very similar conversation with each other. Nowadays, not so much necessarily. I think the biggest issue here from the Melbourne Storm perspective is that, and this is a big reason why they were so desperate for Zach Lomax as well, their backline is looking a tad bit worrying here. It doesn't look star-studded by any means. Will Warbrick is obviously fantastic. Jack Howarth is coming up, and really this has to be his year that he makes his big-time name for himself. Moses Leo, we don't know a great deal too much about him, and Nick Meaney, he's okay. He does the job, but they have lost Xavier Coates for a long portion of the season. Actually, how long is Xavier Coates out for? Xavier Coates is out for quite some time. Actually, I want to quickly just go have a look here in regards to Xavier Coates' injuries. Xavier Coates was Achilles the whole season, is it? Can confirm winger will undergo Achilles surgery Achilles is not the whole season, but it's a good 14 weeks, isn't it? Coates is expected to be signed on for a minimum of 3 months with a potential return to play anticipated around 10 of the NRL season. Okay, so it's not the whole season, which is, God bless, thank God. Xavier Coates is one of the primetime wingers, the peak wingers in the competition. Unbelievable winger, but that does leave a massive hole in this backline, and defensively this backline doesn't look fantastic, and that includes Su'Ulau Fa'alogo. So I do feel like the Storm may not be as defensively resilient as they were last year. If you go to the ladder from last year, in 2025, by the end of the season, now obviously this is very structural and it is a system, right? But the Storm did finish with the second best defense with 212. Oh, sorry, that is... where is it? With 459 against, the Bulldogs with 414 against was the best. So they're off by, just about 40 odd. I just feel like their defense this year could take a bit of a hit in regards to this backline. And then even when you go into the forwards, you've got Stefano Ikamanu and Josh King, Joe Chan, Ativale Lasati and Alec McDonald. You are really held together by Harry Grant there in that 9. But it doesn't give you the most defensively resilient team that you would have seen from the Storm off of the first glance. So, look, I do feel like it is still the Storm system, and they still should all be well and truly bought into what they have to offer over the years. But there is that concern with that backline. And the forwards, there's just no one that really jumps out at you besides Harry Grant. Now, I did say the biggest play for the Storm this year, the breakout play for the Storm this year, has to be Stefano Utuikamanu, because this forward pack doesn't look star-studded. And that's not what the Storm usually do. They don't usually look star-studded, but even looks less now than what it has in the past. So Stefano Utuikamanu has to stand up this year. He has to be the leader. He has to be the big bopper. And that's what he was starting to do at the back end of last year. Got a little bit chirpy and a little bit lippy in that grand final, but without having necessarily proven anything just yet. And he got whacked for 6 from that as well. But overall, this forward pack does look a little bit of a concern overall as well. So it's very interesting to see how the Storm are going to start this year off. Could they start off with a bang? Sure, we know what the Melbourne Storm do. They don't usually lose round 1. They haven't lost a round 1 since, I think, 2001 or maybe even 2000. I can't remember what year it was, but they have not lost this round 1 matchup in a good 25 odd years, and they're very proud of that too. So definitely look to see them come in here firing for that reason alone, let alone from the fact that they just want to win, because that is what they are known for. They are known for winning. Maybe not grand finals in recent years, but they are definitely known for winning and being very consistent throughout. They probably will be a consistent team for the most part, but there is just concerns in regards to their team still as well. Now, for Parramatta Eels, their fullback is Isaiah Yonke, with wingers being Bailey Simonson and Sean Russell, centres of Will Penasini and Brian Kelly. The 5'8" is Jonah Pezzett, with the halfback being Mitchell Moses, who is the captain. Go to the front row forwards is Jermaine Hopgood and Junior Bolo, with the number 9 being Riley Smith. The back row is Jack Williams and Kitiona Kaltonga, with the 13 being Jack DeBellin. Interchange of Dylan Walker, Sam Tuivaiti, Matt Drury, Talon De Silva, Kelma Tuolangi and Joash Papali'i, with the reserves being Jordan Samrani, Charlie Geimer and Tinkham Brown. The coach is Jason Riles. Obviously a brand new direction here for the Eels. Last year was their first, taste of what Jason Riles can provide for them, and now this is where they need to push on. They did play really, really well in the second half of last season. There were some really good games that they were playing, which put a lot more confidence in behind what they could provide this year. They won 6-10 of the Knights. They came last or whatever. They beat the Warriors 26-22. They beat the Roosters 30-10. They did lose that really odd game to the Rabbitohs, which was weird, 20-16. Beat the Cowboys 19-18 and gave it a red hot crack here in a game against the Storm 16-10 and beat the Broncos 22-20. The last really poor game for them came against the Raiders back in round 20. So in their last 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 4-2, 5-2. I think, they were 5-2 in their last 7 games. 5-2 in their last 7 games. Now, you do have to take some context here and say that this doesn't necessarily mean that they're just going to be Absolutely incredible, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to continue this on into the next year, because we've seen this with, say, a team like the Titans a lot in over the years, where they're done and dusted in regards to making the top 8. They can't make it, and they'll go and win a couple of games late on the year to give their fans a bit of positivity. There's nothing really on offer whatsoever, but they just go and win a couple of games to get that belief system back in for the following year, right? So I do look at this and I say the Eels did play some really good games here when all the pressure was off them. You know, they were situated down around this. They were in a wooden spoon battle in the 17, 16, and 15 range, and then they jumped all the way up to 11th position, which ended up being a positive season for them considering. But again, that was when the season was completely over for them, and they were playing with no pressure. Moses has come back. Now, Moses is the key to their team. I think everybody knows that. Without Mitchell Moses, this team just isn't really going to be doing too much. Jonah Pezzett comes in, and that's a big question mark, because how much is the buy-in? He's only there on a loan for this year. He will be going to the Brisbane Broncos next year. So what do the Eels do? One second. What do the Eels do post Jonah Pezzett? That's going to be interesting. Obviously, they're looking at Josh Papali'i, but we'll see how that one does pan out. The halves look fantastic. I don't think Jonah Pezzett has proven anything just yet, though. You know, he's still super young, and he's really got to still make his mark. This could be when he makes his mark and then really get the Broncos fans chirping and excited for next year. But Jonah Pezzett needs a big year. He has to have a buy-in here. He has to, you know, show that he is, you know, a primetime 5/8 going forward, especially now that Adam Reynolds is leaving the Brisbane Broncos at the end of the year. You know, he has to come in there and he has to provide for them immediately. So learn from Mitchell Moses, learn from an experienced player there, and then really grow into the player that you're expected to be. So it is a big signing there for them, but it is very, very temporary, and that does leave the question mark in regards to the buy-in. Regards to the backline, now this Eels team did win the preseason. They won their 2 games. The one against the Roosters, they were down at halftime to full strength on full strength, and then we saw the second half, it did change up, and the Eels did go on to win that game. The game against the Sharks doesn't really matter at all, because that was a game against the Sharks outfit that didn't play anybody in the first game. So I do keep an eye on the preseason. They did look pretty good, but also if you look at the preseason, all the teams that are expected to, or all the teams that haven't been that great in recent years, were the ones who finished in the top 3, and the Titans, the Eels, and the Tigers. So I look at and also the Titans were just one offload away from going and win it themselves. Because the point of the matter is that I look at that preseason and I go, sure, okay, they won it, but let's go and see them do it against the Melbourne Storm in Melbourne on round 1 where they never lose. Defensively, this backline is interesting. Now, they've got Brian Kelly, who comes across from the Gold Coast Titans. He's very rocks and diamonds. I love BK. BK is an awesome dude. You know, BK is a great guy. But when it comes to the game, he's either extremely hit or extremely miss. He is extremely diamonds or he's extremely rocks. There is no actual in between there with Brian Kelly. He doesn't just kind of go about his business. He is very rocks and diamonds. He will throw a flick pass here. He will work so hard. He is such a hard worker. He will do his very best to get you the win. But sometimes that can be at a detriment to his own club. So that's something to worry about there with Brian Kelly. You're not going to worry in regards to his work ethic, but you are just going to worry about a couple of brain snaps where he's trying too hard to get the win overall. And this Eels team for mine can't be that team that does have those errors. They can't be that team that do throw away the momentum. I think they really need to capitalise on the momentum. This team can completely go backwards and can completely fall off a cliff if the momentum goes against them, or they get it and then they just lose it, and then the other team, you know, gets back into the arm wrestle of it all. I don't like that from the Eels, and that is a bit of a concern there. But Isaiah Yongi is a nice little fullback coming up. It's an okay backline here that really should be able to do its best work if Moses is fit and firing and Jonah Pezzett has that buy-in. And then with that, the forwards are Jermaine Hopgood, Riley Smith, Junior Bolo, Jack Williams, Kitchener Katonga, and DeBellin. Riley Smith is okay. He's fine. But in regards to the front row forwards, very good there. And Jermaine Hopgood and Bolo, even though Bolo is kind of playing as he really does emphasise on those offloads nowadays. He's kind of plays like a 13, but in the front row. It's kind of odd there. He's a big body. He's not at his prime, but he was, you know, a few years back, but that is a good forward pack in the front row. And the back row is Jack Williams and Katonga. Williams has actually been pretty good since coming across from the Sharkies. Does have an error or two, and so does Katonga, but Katonga does have his Fijian rep as well. And then Jack DeBellin comes across from the Dragons, and he's just a hard worker. This is actually a pretty tough unit forward pack for the Eels. The 9 is okay, But overall, it's a pretty tough Unit 4 pack. So this team does have some decent benefits coming into this year. And that's why I tipped them up in 9th position in my preseason predictions. If you haven't seen that video yet, you can check it out after this stream. But I did tip them as high as 9th. And I did say that, look, if all things go right for them, I could actually see them in 4th, 5th position. But I need to see that because the Eels are not a team that you can necessarily just bank on and guarantee that the consistency is going to be there. They've never been that kind of team. So, look, I think that this is a solid enough Eels team that can do a job, but I am ultimately going to be backing in that first round 1 victory here for the Storm. I think I just have to. Look, they're $1.43 favourites there. I think they earn every part of that $1.43 favourites. The Storm are coming off a grand final, 2 grand finals in a row. You know, they are consistent. They love this round 1 matchup. They are at home. They need to bounce back after that grand final loss in heartbreaking circumstances last year. And they need to get their season off with a bang. So I feel like this will be a 1-12 game. I don't think the Storm will actually blow the Eels out because I think the Eels have enough in them. And I could see a surprise upset here. I do feel like the poll right now has the most chance of an upset being Eels beating the Storm. I do think that probably is the most chance of an upset this week. You know, there is the other games aren't like this. The Titans one is very askew. And then there is some good odds behind the Panthers and whatnot, and the Warriors as well. But I just feel like if there is going to be the big upset of the round, it probably would come from the Eels rather than any of the other teams on I'm more confident that happens compared. So look, I am going to tip the Storm. I will go 1-12. I'll give the respect where respect is due for this Eels team. I just think that this is the cauldron. They've started off in an absolute fire blast in round 1 where I just don't know if they can get over the line. Steven says, also be a Broncos supporter. As you know, I am. I think we might get done by Penrith. We'll talk about that when we get to the Broncos-Panthers game, man, very soon. B-Lloyd says, Storm easily win. It's Storm. They are too good. Well, again, you go back to that recent Eels-Storm game. Yeah, the Storm won 16-10, but the Eels were well and truly in that game. Like, if you go into the context of the game, it was at halftime 10-4 to the Storm, and the Eels actually scored immediately after the halftime break, and I think it was 10-8 up until the 69th minute, where then Xavier Coates scored and they got the conversion to make it it must have been 10-10. Yeah, because they got a penalty goal here in the 54th minute. So it was 10-10 until the 69th minute, where the Eels then gave up a try to Xavier Coates. So it's not like that was the blowout that I feel like most people are expecting. This was the blowout that everyone was expecting, though. That was in round 1 last year. So, we could easily go and see that. If the Eels aren't ready, we could easily go and see them get absolutely pumped. But I just feel like this Eels team does feel a bit better than what that early part of the season Eels was last year. So I would be more inclined to lean with this result here of the 16-10 to the Storm than I would to the 56-18 that we saw in round 1, even though that is the same matchup last year as it is this year in the same round. Dasmate says Storm 3-peating. So Samuel, brother, just please use the chat for the specific game. We'll talk about the Sharks and Titans and I'll slap you down in a second, alright, bro? Like, we get it, you're a Sharks fan, but just wait for the Sharks-Titans chat and then we'll talk all about the peptide users, alright? Michael says Storm, other big loss is losing Solomon. Yeah, well, they've got a couple of big losses, to be fair, the Melbourne Storm. They do have a couple of big losses, which will be interesting to see how they put it together through that. Up the Bunny says, tipping the... unfortunately, you're going to get timed out. You can only use... There's only one S in Storm, Bunnies. I will read this coming out, but there is only one S in Storm, even though it's a tipping stream. You know the rules here on this channel, champion. You know the rules. Tip the Storm due to them playing at Amy Park, where it is hard to beat them at and their halves are just overall better. Yeah, look, I think their spine is just overall better. But with that being said, Jonah Pezzett does come across from the Melbourne Storm, and Mitchell Moses is still a big-time halfback. And honestly, if you're asking me who the better halfback is between Jerome Hughes and Mitchell Moses, I think fully fit, I'd go Moses. I would. I'd go fully fit. I would say Mitchell Moses over Jerome Hughes. Cameron Munster does pull it up over the Jonah Pezzett there by a significant fair margin. But the halves there for the Melbourne Storm collectively a lot better. However, Moses and Pezzett is still a really good halves pairing, so I wouldn't necessarily say it comes down to the halves, but I I would say overall spine-wise, far longer Munster, Hughes and Grant compared to Yongi, Pezzett, Moses and Riley Smith. There's a vast margin between the quality that you're expecting there from the Storm to the Eels, but we'll have to wait and see. B-Low says Storm will win 24-20. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I don't mind that prediction. I think that's a pretty good prediction. Dasmate says you're legit developing a player for the Broncos. Yeah, agree. Brighton says logic and stats say Storm win this, but it's got an upset about it. It always does have an upset about it. But I can't back in the upset. There is always an upset feeling about this matchup. It feels like the Eels just always play it quite sneaky against the Storm, in recent years anyway. I wouldn't have the cojones to go all out, guns blazing and say the Eels go down to Melbourne and beat Melbourne in the first round, because if that happens, there'll be alarm bells ringing at the Melbourne Storm for this year. Steven says, I reckon Melbourne has lost its sting. Samuel, I'm going to quickly just jump in here, bro. Are you here to actually include yourself in a conversation, or are you just here to insult the Titans? Because, man, this stream isn't just here to just insult the Gold Coast the entire time. One, we're not even talking about the Titans yet, and it's just really strange that every single comment is just you taking the piss out of the Titans. So, look, I'll give you the one warning here, man. Just get involved in the conversation and enjoy the stream and enjoy the chat about all the games, but just ease up a little bit, because otherwise we'll just remove you. Stephen Dingo says, I reckon Melbourne has lost its sting. Everyone says this every year, man. Every single year we do get people saying that Melbourne's lost its sting and they're going to drop off and fall down the table. And then, would you have it, they every year finish in the top four, right? There is that thought process that their backline's not spectacular outside of the spine, and then the forwards are a bit underwhelming. But I feel like they're probably still going to... I still tipped them for fourth place this year, man. I still tipped them for fourth place, and I still think they're going to have a positive year. I don't think a grand final is necessarily what I'm looking at here. I don't know. I really think there are other teams that are a bit more prime for a grand final, and that will really hurt Storm fans after not being able to, go against the previous 2 years and to get their revenge and to actually go and do it. But the Storm are always a team that you're going to have in the back of your mind thinking maybe it could come around and they could still find it. Got some corn. It's a bit warm. Brighton has no bench press form. Storm 13+. Thank you, Daz. Then it says, I went Melbourne 26-24. That round one bellyache record, man. I think Parra could get over the line if that didn't exist. Yeah, I would agree. But all right. There we go. That is the first game. Like I said, guys, if you haven't joined our tipping competition yet, it is in the pinned comment of the chat. Let's move into the next game now. Samuel says, I just want to support my team. You can support your team, bro, but support the Sharks. You don't need to just insult the Titans with every single comment. Just support your team. At the end of the day, I like the Sharkies. They're my mum's team. If the Titans aren't winning, I'd like to see the Sharkies do well. But you don't make it easy if you're just going to sit there and insulting the Gold Coast the entire time when we're not even talking about the Sharks versus the Titans game. But let's move into the New Zealand Warriors taking on the Sydney Roosters. This is at Go Media Stadium in Auckland. Obviously, guys, hit that like button and subscribe if you are new around here. This is over there in New Zealand, and the Warriors are trying to fight back after a disappointing second half of last season. They really fell out the back end in the second half of the year after a fantastic first half of the year where their defence was unbelievable. It was top 3, top 4 defence. But their attack was always the worry. It was about 11th in attack, even when they were in the top 4, because it was all based off of their defense. So that is the thing that they really need to improve this year. Obviously, they lost Luke Metcalf and Barnett and whatnot, but the attack was still struggling even when those guys were there. Their defense just then fell from that as well, and that's what really capitulated them overall. So when Metcalf and Barnett are in the team, you're definitely going to be expecting a bit... You're going to be expecting a significant rise in what you're going to see out of this Warriors team. But Metcalf is out for the first 7 rounds. And Mitchell Barnett, when does he come back? Here? Let me just quickly go and have a look. Mitchell Barnett injury. Who was returning from ACL injury that ruptured most of last year, announced he would be returning. Yet no, I want to know when he comes back from it. When does he come back from it? But the Warriors forward revealed to Code Sports that the need for medical care for... Yeah. Okay, they're talking about him going back to Australia, but I want to know how long he's out for. Injury return date. I've got him in my Supercoach team too, my Supercoach draft team. Return to... No. Okay, can someone... surgery on his broken fibula was successful with return to play date set for round 11 to 12. So they're still missing They're still missing Mitchell Barnett for 11 or 12 rounds, and they're still missing Luke Metcalf for quite a few, like 7 or 8 rounds. So this is where it gets really testy for the Warriors. This is where, are they going to be able to get off to a good start, or are they going to come home strong in comparison? It's an interesting question there, but let's get into the two-team lineup. So the Warriors, Chance Newell-Klukstad is the fullback, with the wingers being Dallin Martinez-Lesniak and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. The centres are Ali Leotawa and Adam Pompey, with the 5'8" being Chanel Harris-Tavita, and the halfback Tanner Boyd does not miss that bloke. Front row forwards are James Fisher-Harris, the captain, and Jackson Ford, with the number 9 being Wade Egan. Back rowers Kurt Catewell and Jacob Laban, with the 13 being Aaron Clark. And then the interchange is Sam Healy, Dimitri Vaimalga, Leka Halasima, Tanner Stowers-Smith, Tane Tuapuki, and Morgan Gannon. With the reserves Alofiana Khan Pereira, Luke Hansen, Eddie Yeremai Tuava, and the coach is Andrew Webster. That is a big suggestion there. So they've gone and purchased Alofiana Khan Pereira from the Titans. They've brought him across, and what you're telling me is you're not playing him? You're telling me that he's a reserve? Why is Alofiana Khan Pereira? That is an interesting development, man, that he is not going to be featuring on the team. Obviously, Roger and Dallin, like that's really intriguing. Why? Why did you go and make a purchase of Alofiana Khan Pereira if you're not going to play him? Are you really that convinced in the wing pairing of Dallin and Roger? And if anything, you couldn't have put Roger into the centres alongside Alofi? Rocco Berry's obviously injured here, so that makes him even further down. That makes him even further down the thought process, because Rocco Berry, I would assume, comes in for either Adam Pompey or Ali Leotawa, but they're really hyped on Leotawa. Maybe Rocco comes in for Adam Pompey overall. I'm not too sure. That is an interesting development in regards to that back line. What is the point that you went and purchased Alofiana Khan Pereira if you're not even going to play him? The 1 through 5 is pretty decent. Defensively, not so much, but that you would expect. But attacking-wise, they've got plenty of attack. Dallin's got plenty in him. Ali Leotawa's got plenty in him. So has Roger. But, Roger, how old's he getting now? He's definitely towards the back end of his career for sure. 93, so he'd be, 32 years old for a... 32 years old, and for a winger, he is definitely starting to get up there. Whilst, again, Loffy is extremely young. You're not going to be dropping Roger for Loff. I just thought they would have adjusted their team a little bit more for that. But, yeah, look, this 1 through 5 is solid, but the biggest questions are going to come to their halves of Tanner Boyd and Chanel Harris-Tavita. Tan gets that starting gig at the 7 because Luke Metcalf is out. It'll be interesting what happens when Luke Metcalf comes back, if Tanner goes to the 6, or if they put him to, say, a 14, or he doesn't make it in general, and they keep Harris-Tavita there. That'll be interesting to find out, but Metcalf will walk straight back in the 7, or maybe they do Tanner Boyd in the 7 if he's doing well enough, and they put Luke Metcalf into the 6, which is actually what I think Metcalf is. I don't think that he's a 7. I do think he's more of a 6. And even with the Newcastle Knights, I feel like I was proven in a lot of ways with Dylan Brown. I didn't feel like he had a good game there in that 7 at all. I thought that he is a pure 6. But with that being said, they still won that game, so ignore that for the time being. This halves pairing doesn't light the world on fire. Tan had a really good year for the New Zealand Warriors in the New South Wales Cup last year, and they were able to win that with him at the helm. He's usually a very, very good conversion kicker, so they'll at least be taking that option, with the fact that Warriors over the years have not been a great conversion kicking team. But Harris-Tavita and Tanner, will they work out together? I'm excited to see it, but there is a lot of question marks with that. And then their forward pack. This is a really solid forward pack, man. Fisher, Harris, Wade Egan, Ford, Kurt Catewell, Laban, and Aaron Clark. You're not having any question marks in regards to their forward pack. This should be one of the best forward packs in the league. I still do prefer Sam Healy over Wade Egan in that number 9, but Wade Egan does have the bigger name there, and I can understand why they're still knocking on with him. James Fisher-Harris and Jackson Ford are so tough. You wait to see Mitchell Barnett in that front row as well. And Catewell, obviously Origin rep, and he knows what he's doing. Jacob Laban, nice little play coming up, and Aaron Clark was their best player for mine last year. Roger won their best player of the year, but I felt like Aaron Clark was absolutely robbed in that regards. And their bench, guys like Leka Halasima, fantastic. Tane Tuaupiki there for that versatility. Sam Healy. Yeah, this is a good Warriors team. This is a good Warriors team, but it's defensively that I'm talking about, not necessarily attacking wise am I talking about. It's not really an overtly attacking team compared to the defense, because if you go back to last year, the Warriors scored 517 points in 6th position. The Gold Coast Titans in 16th position scored 3 more points than them with 520. So that is really disappointing. And it even goes to say with the Bulldogs there with the 534, they only got 14 more points. But the attack just was not there in comparison. It just really didn't help them whatsoever. So that is what you're going to be worried about with the Warriors. Now, for the Roosters, on the other hand, the fullback is James Tedesco, who is the captain, who won the Dally M last year as well. Wingers of Daniel Tupou and Mark Nwangana-Tawase. Centres of Billy Smith and Robert Toya, with 5'8" Daly Cherry Evans and the halfback Sam Walker. Front row forwards are Nafahu White and Lindsay Collins, with the number 9 being Benai Yawelu. Then you go to the back row of Angus Crichton and Nat Butcher, with the 13 being Blake Steep. Interchange of Connor Watson, Siwa Wong, Egan Butcher, Spencer Lenu, Cody Ramsey and Fetalega Pauga, with the reserves of Salesi Foketi, Tommy Talau and Toby Rodwell. Obviously, coach is Trent Robinson. This is a very good Roosters team. If you watch my preseason predictions video, I did put them in first position. I do think they've got a really high ceiling this year. I think they could absolutely promise a lot and deliver a little. It's something the Roosters have done over recent years, minus last year. But this Roosters team just has such a star-studded lineup. Nwangana-Tawase and Daniel Tupou are 2 of the best wingers in the competition. The centres are Billy Smith and Robert Toya. Billy Smith is so underrated, and Robert Toya had an incredible year for Queensland last year. Obviously plays for Tonga as well. He's going to be just bigger and better for what we saw in 2025, in my opinion, in his centres. James Tedesco, there's not much I even need to say about him. He won the Dally M last year. He's been one of the best fullbacks in the game for a long time and should honestly be included in one of the best fullbacks of all time category. That's how long and quality he has been in this competition. So that 1 through 5 is one of the best 1 through 5s in the competition. It really is, and you could make an argument for it being the best 1 through 5. And then you move into the halves here, where it's Daly Cherry Evans in the 5'8" and Sam Walker in the halfback. That's incredible. Cherry Evans comes across with the experience to provide Sam Walker, who does have experience, but also he just needs that big time half to take some pressure off of him. And I think Hugo Savala was doing a bit of that, but overall, a lot of people, and I can get why you're concerned about Cherry Evans and his form drop-off from Queensland, where he got dropped from the Queensland squad, got taken off his captaincy. They lost that game that he was there, and then Queensland, when he was dropped and lost the captaincy, actually went on to win the series 2-1, and away from home in New South Wales as well. So that was such a big thing for Queensland to do, because that's not really in the Queensland DNA, but they kind of had to do it, and then you've seen that it's gone and worked out. So, and then with Manly Seagulls, Cherry Evans has been a bit of a detriment, really, in the last couple of years to Manly compared to a positive. So, there is definitely the question marks that sit there with Ches, but I just feel like as long as he buys into the fact that he's not the main man here, and he just needs to play off of Sam Walker and needs to, really just do his own thing, but as the second man in charge compared, I feel like this is going to be an unbelievable halves pairing this year. Sam Walker is going to take that next step up. Now he's really post that long-term season injury. I feel he's going to come and just absolutely fly here, and I'm just so hyped in regards to that 1 through 7. And then you go to the front row forwards of Nafahu White and Lindsay Collins. Nafahu White was incredible last year for the Roosters, one of their best players, really came out of the system well. Lindsay Collins, one of the toughest units that you're ever going to see. Benai Yawelu, now this is a frustrating one because they actually went and signed Reece Robson from the North Queensland Cowboys, and that would have just really electrified their team. Because whilst Yuelu's fine, they've got Connor Watson as the 14. Connor Watson, for mine, isn't a starting 9, and that's why they've got him as the 14 for Yuelu. But Reece Robson and Connor Watson is just a dynamic duo in regards to the hooker department there. I feel like that's what we might have seen with New South Wales when they were playing. Connor Watson plays well for New South Wales, and I feel like Reece Robson and Connor Watson were a bit of a dynamic duo there in that 9 and 14 for them, but I could have been wrong. Maybe Reece Robson was just before Connor Watson came in, can't remember. But that will really complete their team when Robson comes back in about round 7, I think it is. Their back row is Angus Crichton, Nat Butcher. That's fantastic. Nat Butcher is okay. I would say that he's one of the weaker links across the 10th. I mean, I was really hyped about him a few years back. I'm surprised that Siwa Wong isn't getting a starting gig there over the top of him. But with that being said, Nat Butcher's got plenty of experience, and Blake Steep, he looked absolutely fantastic in that Indigenous versus Māori All-Stars game. He looked unbelievable. And this bench is just ridiculous. Spencer Leniu is spot on. Egan Bush, a tough unit. Siwa Wong, very good. Connor Watson, one of the best utilities, if not the best utility in the game. Cody Ramsey comes across from the Dragons. He's got a bit of spice, and they've got that versatility there alongside Fetalaga Pauga. Realistically, guys, I'm going to take the Roosters here. I feel like the Roosters is what pretty much everyone will be tipping, but the Warriors are very defensively resilient. There is no guarantee in this result, and that's why even though the Roosters are $1.54 here and the Warriors are $2.49, there is a clear enough gap there to suggest the Roosters are very strong favourites. The Warriors, the home stats don't actually lean with them as much as you would actually think. They don't. So don't just think, oh, Warriors are at home, they're going to win this game. It's a little bit overrated, that stat, in a lot of ways. So when I look at this game, I go, Warriors do have that very strong defense that I don't think will change. I just don't know if they have the attack to put it past the Roosters. Whilst if you look at the Roosters last year, this was minus Cherry Evans. The Roosters had 653 points on attack and 521 points against. Compare that to the Warriors, who had 517. So they had 136 more points the Roosters did than the Warriors last year. And defensively, they were only about 30 odd off, literally 25 off them defensively. So I do feel like the Roosters have a solid enough defense as well, whilst they have that electrifying attack that puts them above them. So I feel like, I have to take the Chooks down. I hate that I'm taking both the two favourites there, but favourites are favourite for a reason. I know everyone likes to go with the underdogs and the upsets, and we definitely could see it last year. We saw a lot of upsets in the early part of the year. This one could definitely have it on it, but I have to lean with the Roosters with how strong I think their team is this year. B. Lois's Dallin is so mid. Look, I think Dallin is... I think Dallin is overhated, man. I really do. I don't think he's as bad as people suggest, because most people are blaming him for every try that comes down his wing. But a lot of the time when he's coming in off his wing is because his centre is jammed in as well, which means that he has to make that decision, and he makes that decision, and ultimately they do get scored against. But I don't think he is as bad as people make him out to be. It's just that he's a massive scapegoat for this team. Lofiana Khan-Pereira defensively is not great. He just isn't. But attacking-wise, I would say that Lofiana Khan-Pereira is one of the best attacking wingers in the competition, and I would have him over Dallin. So I probably would have taken that little bit of a sneaky shout at going Lof over Dallin, because I do think that they're similar players overall. I feel like Dallin probably does have better defense and probably tougher carries out of the back just than Loffy, but that attack and that speed that you get from Loff is just different gravy. So I probably would have taken that bit of a shout, but obviously they didn't. They decided not to do that. Brian says, RTS only 32. He's got a good couple of years left. He was the Chooks winger in the 2013 Grand Final. Yeah, he was. But he is 32 now. And for a winger that is starting to get on, for the forwards, they kind of go for long duration. But for winger, we'll see how long it gets the best out of him. But I would love to see the Warriors fans explain their thoughts in regards to Lofiana Khan-Pereira not actually being in their team, because I do think that is a big time. It's a crazy suggestion there from Andrew Webster, but what do we know? Jacko says fake ladder. Titans points for was 6 million. This is correct, Jacko. We're just doing it to be nice to the rest of the competition, mate. We just want to not make it so easy for us. That's just what we're doing. The Gold Coast. New Zealand guy says, are you hosting the Black Caps? Yeah, I'll be live tonight for the South Africa New Zealand game. Yeah, I will. I will be live tonight. Dasmate says William Brewster. Paddy said Worcester. Spencer Leniu's breath smells like a sewer. Roosters 1 at 12. That was absolutely horrific, Dasmate. That was absolutely horrific. I will go Roosters 1 at 12 here as well. I do think this should be close. I'll go to 1 at 12. New Zealand guys, well, if the Warriors win, then that will set up their season. Well, you need to see 5 to 7 rounds first, man. I don't think that just a win in round 1 sets up their season. The Roosters still give that promise a lot, deliver a little vibe about them. But I will back in the promise a lot at the moment. But it doesn't necessarily set up their season just winning the first round. If they go and win, 4 out of their first 5 games or 5 out of their first 7 games, then that really sets up their season. But the first round is just the first round. This is a round that you're not happy to throw away, but you're content if you do throw it away kind of deal, because it is just the first game of the season. Sen says, good to see you again this season, brother. Keep up the great work. I'm always here, son. I'm always here. I'm always firing up. We'll be live for every single game. Tomorrow night we've got Storm versus the Eels. This is old lost pace at 32. That is old lost pace 32. Well, 32 I don't think is old, but it's getting to in rugby league terminology. Obviously, if you're 31, 32 years old in outside of rugby league terminology, you're still fresh as a pup, man. But if you are 32 in rugby league, you're definitely getting towards the back end and the back trajectory of your career. You're not going to go upwards. There's not going to be an upward spike. Realistically, you're going to start to see a negative trajectory. James Tedesco, for example, he's 93, so he's been at his peak. Look, this year we may start to see slight regression, but with that being said, I'm not going to back that in because of how good he has been. But there will come a point where James Tedesco, despite how good he's been, there will come a point where he will start to regress, and it will probably be after this point or after this year kind of deal. 32 is definitely getting on there in rugby league age. Brenton says, maybe Webster didn't see enough in Cairns' defence in the off-season. Just a guess, though. Look, maybe, but then again, what are you expecting from Dallin overall? What are you expecting from Dallin? So, look, yeah, Ibrahim says, yeah, got Roosters 1 at 12. Ibrahim, listen, I want you to get out of my face. Yeah, I want you to get away from being in second position right on behind me, mate. Stop breathing down my neck here. I know this is you. Stop breathing down my neck, mate. Just let me be. Just let me damn well be. You better not be just following my tips this whole year, because otherwise we're going to tie on top place undefeated, because I might never get a tip wrong ever again. But there you go, guys. That is the Warriors versus the Roosters game. Let's move into the next game now, which is going to be the big game of the weekend. The Brisbane Broncos taking on the Penrith Panthers. Obviously, hit that like button, subscribe if you are new around here. If you haven't joined our tipping competition yet, it is completely free. Whoever wins it will get a merchandise package from their team at the end of the year. So just join that tipping comp. You don't get the first two games, but there's plenty of games to go this year, man. We're not even halfway through round one just yet. And if you are on live, great. If you aren't on live, there is timestamps for every single team when we're talking about them during the stream. But okay, the next game, the Brisbane Broncos taking on the Penrith Panthers at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. This is a big matchup because the last time these two teams played each other was in a preliminary final for the ages, where I think the Panthers led, was it 14-0 at half-time, and then the Broncos were able to come back and win that game, maybe 16-14, or was it, what was that score in the end, actually? Either way, the Broncos came running home like a train, which is what they do. That is what they are known for. Oh, I think I just clicked on an ad. No, I didn't. Yeah, 16-14. I was right there. They came back from out of nowhere to win that game with 5 minutes to go. The Panthers were literally 5 minutes away from going 6 grand finals in a row. Lost 2020, but then 121, 122, 123, 124, and 120. Not 125, 124. So they were 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, they were 5 minutes away from going into that grand final for the 6th consecutive year. This Panthers team looks gangbusters this year. I feel like they're going to be back to their best. It was an awful start of the year for them last year in the first half. Same thing with the Brisbane Broncos. These two teams actually had a very similar year last year. Very, very similar. It's just the Broncos were able to pip them in the end. Because the first half of the year, the Broncos were down like bottom 6 or something like that. They were really struggling themselves. Reece Walsh was out of form. There was a few injuries here and there. And they just weren't, they didn't have the ability to get those comebacks in the games. And they were giving up too big of a head start kind of deal. That obviously changed. And the same thing with the Panthers. They don't give up those massive head starts for the chase, but they just were awful. They were in last, second last, and third last for the first 10 or so rounds of the season before coming home like a train. These two teams are in very similar positions, and that's why I don't understand why people are so confident in saying the Broncos are going to go and do it again this year, but yet there are some people saying the Panthers are going to have a bit of a drop-off. I don't get it, because the Panthers team doesn't lose anything. If not, you should be more confident in the Panthers right now than you were last year, in my personal opinion. But the Broncos come into this game off the back of that loss to Hull KR in the World Club Challenge, which is a glorified pre-season game. Regardless of what the English say, I know they're going to talk shit about it, but at the end of the day, it is a glorified pre-season game for the NRL's perspective. It's just about more so from a Super League perspective to go and win that game, to talk down upon the NRL, who is always talking down upon the Super League kind of deal. There's just a lot of context behind that. But with that being said, well done to Hull KR for winning that game. Absolutely deserved to win that game. They did lose their first game in the Super League 1918 to York City, and they also lost in the Vegas game to Leeds United 58 points to 6 or 56 to 6 or whatever it was, something ridiculous. So that is a concern there for the Broncos, that Hull KR team has been done over in both of their original games in their own league at the moment. But that was just their first hit out of the year. It was literally their first hit out of the year. So don't take too much emphasis in it. And if you look at the game and how it was played, they looked exactly the same as last year, where they give up this massive head start and they just eat into it. Will they be able to do that on a consistent level in 2026? I don't know, but it does show the same similarities to what we saw in 2025. Now the Broncos team, Reece Walsh with the wingers of the Reece Walsh the fullback, with the wingers Josiah Kadapani and Dean Mariner, centres of Kotoni Staggs and Gehamad Shibasaki. The 5'8" is Ezra Mann, with the halfback being Adam Reynolds, was the captain. And go to the front row forwards of Corey Jensen and Payne Haas, with the number 9 being Corey Pakes. You go to the back row, Jack Yasewski and Jordan Riggy, with the 13, Patrick Carrigan. Interchange of Ben Hunt, Xavier Willison, Ben Talty, Oblix Tava, Grant Anderson and Jesse Arthurs, with the reserves Blake Moser, Jaden Hunt, Thomas Duffy, and the coaches Michael Maguire. Absolute dribble in regards to the media recently, coming from Michael Maguire again, saying that people are complaining about his coaching techniques and his training techniques. Man, shut your mouth. Like, at the end of the day, they won the premiership last year. They literally won the premiership, and this was the same dribble that we heard from the media in the first half of last year. There's no way that he should be up in the criticism in comparison to other coaches. Michael Maguire is one of the best coaches in the game right now. He went from winning the Pacific Cup with New Zealand 30-0 over Australia to winning Origin over Queensland with New South Wales 2-1, and then going on to win a premiership with the Broncos for the first time in 19 years. In 2006 was the last time they won it. There should be no hate for Michael Maguire. He is clearly one of the best coaches in the game as we currently speak. So that was, just stupid to see in the media's perspective. They've got a really solid team here. The biggest question marks that I will say is that, one, this is Adam Reynolds last year. You do know that, the body is impacting him now. That's a big reason as to why he is leaving. They do have that backup there in Ben Hunt that will come off the bench that can be used in that position. He's also getting older now, though. I think he's about 35 years old. Gehamad Shibasaki, for many years, has been one of those kind of guys that has just gone around clubs and then last year exploded the Broncos under the system. Let's see if he can go and be consistent with it and do it again. But I don't know if I could completely back that in, because yes, last year was incredible. However, I have seen on a consistent basis him really struggling to maintain continuation of how he plays. So Shibasaki is one to watch in that department. Same thing goes with Kadapani and Dean Mariner. They had breakout years last year, but let's see them do it again. And Kotoni Staggs is a massive rocks and diamonds player. Massive, massive rocks and diamonds, where we saw him have an awful game against Hull KR. He can either be the best player in the field or the worst player in the field, very similar to Brian Kelly, but on an upper echelon level. The Staggs is just so hot and cold. He's so 50-50. I love him. I really do when he's playing at his best, but he can be an absolute muppet as well at times. So that 1 through 5 is what brings me down a little bit of a notch in regards to the Broncos, rather than actually ups my positivity and confidence in the Broncos. Reece Walsh is the prime example of this too. Last year, in the first half of the year, he was awful. He was looking really, really poor. And the second half of the year, he deserved to be in the same stature as James Tedesco 2019, Benny Barber 2012, Jared Hayne 2009, and Tommy Trbojevic 2021. That was the stature that I honestly saw from Reece Walsh in the second half of last year. But he is still a very inconsistent player. He will throw a pass into Rose Ed, and then he'll score a try or set up a try right after, and then he'll knock the ball on immediately after and give the ball straight back to the opposition. This 1 through 5 is very rocks and diamonds for mine in 2026. That's the biggest thing that I'm watching. And they've gone and got their premiership. Do they have what it takes to go and do it again? I did tip them up high again. I put them in 5th position on the basis that I do just have those little niche thought processes that could come off there. It doesn't mean that they will. The Broncos could go and win the competition again, but it does need to all go right from again, like it did last year. The halves of Ezra Mann and Adam Reynolds, again, the age there on Adam Reynolds not on his side, same with Benny Hunt. They've got Jonah Pezza coming in next year. Ezra Mann, at least he's got that bullshit scenario that he was involved in out of the system, even though, shouldn't have played last year. With that being said, did play last year. This halves pairing should still go well, especially with Ben Hunt being off the bench there. He'll come in off that 9 and really help them out. And if he needs to come into the 6 or the 7, if one of those guys got injured, then great, he's right there. The front row forwards of Jensen and Payne Haas. Look, Payne Haas is the clear leader. Corey Jensen, very solid. I love that 1-2 pairing like a Fisher Harris and Moses Leota. I feel like this is very similar here in Payne Haas and Corey Jensen, where Jensen's underrated because Payne Haas is so explosive. I feel like this is a very quality front row pairing here that you don't need to see two just unbelievable front rowers. You just need to see one really solid and one massive Payne Haas. Now, they do lose him next year, which will bring a lot of question marks into the Broncos for 2027, but that's something to talk about later. The back row of Jack Kiesewski and Jordan Ricky is concerning. I won't lie in regards to that. And then Paddy Carrigan's unbelievable in the lock. The question then comes to Corey Pakes, who I think is more of a tougher unit than Ben Hunt. I think Ben Hunt is more X-Factor and does have a lot more to him, even in his older age. This duo will be interesting to watch and to see. Ben Hunt now is that 14 rather than the starting 9. I feel like that might be game decisive wise in regards to tactics. Like Corey Pakes is probably the better fit for a game against the Panthers here as the starting 9, whilst Ben Hunt might be a better fit against a weaker team where you don't need to be as gritty and as I feel like Corey Pakes just brings a lot more grit to that hooker position than, say, Ben Hunt, and you're going to need that against the Panthers team here. And the bench is good. Xavier Willison, fantastic. Well, these two guys on the bench are good. It does drop off with Talty, Oblix Taffa, Grant Anderson, Jesse Arthurs. With that being said, I do feel overall their bench is fine. So this Broncos team, there definitely is question marks in regards to them this year. But there's a reason they won the comp last year. They just need that consistency, which I don't believe they necessarily have the consistency. But the questions must be asked. You can say to me, I'm a biased Titans fan you like. If you watch my streams, you watch my content. I'm just giving you my honest opinion here based off of all the games that I do watch. I'm not being biased. I'm not trying to hate or whatever. I genuinely am just trying to give you my perspective on what I've been watching. Then we go to the Penrith Panthers, who their fullback is Dylan Edwards, with the wingers being Paul Lamotti and Brian To'o, centres of Isaac Tungle and Casey McLean. 5'8" is Blaze Salungi, with the halfback Nathan Cleary, the captain. The front row forwards are Moses Leota and Lindsay Smith, with the number 9 being Mitch Kenny. Back row of Scotty Sorensen and Luke Garner, with the 13 being Isaiah Yeo. Interchange of Jack Cogger, Luron Patea, Isaiah Papali'i, Kalani Going, Thomas Jenkins, Freddie Lussick, and the reserves of Billy Phillips, Jack Cole, and Sione Fanua, with the coach being Ivan Cleary. This Panthers team should honestly be rock and rolling. Dylan Edwards is one that I'm going to be really watching in this game. He had a really poor 2025. Needs to improve to what we've seen from him in the past. Otherwise, they do need to start talking about that, because Dylan Edwards was that poor. He really was. He made so many key errors, especially in second halves, because the Panthers were actually the opposite team to the Broncos last year. And we said this throughout all of our streams. The Broncos would give up a massive halftime lead, and then they would just come back and eat into it. The Panthers, they would dominate that first half and then let teams right back into it. And that's why I kept telling you guys in that preliminary final, the Broncos are going to come back here. This is what they do, and this is what the Panthers do. The trajectory throughout the season of last year, the Panthers and Broncos were very similar teams in regards to where they started to where they finished. But in regards to the game, they were the complete opposite. Broncos, bad first half, good second half. Panthers, good first half, bad second half. And Dylan Edwards was actually a key reason to these bad second halves, because his knock-ons would be crucial. He would give the ball up in the worst time possible. And I back him in to have another good year this year. I back him in to come back into form. But we really need to see it. The 2 through 5 of Polomotti, Tungo, Casey McLean, and To'o is electric. That does really look quality. Alamotti, one of the more underrated players, so tough, so strong, good hands. He's going to be a big-time player for this Panthers team this year. Whilst the Tungo, McLean, and To'o we know all about. Tungo and McLean, very, very strong. The halves of Blaze Salungi and Nathan Cleary. Nothing needs to be said about this halves pairing for Nathan Cleary's side. Blaze Salungi, very young, will be better for last year. On having to experience the ups and downs of what the Panthers did go through. I think this Blaze Salungi this year is going to have a breakout year. I think he'll put himself into actually top 3, top 4, 5/8 in the game. That's how much hype I have for Blaze Salungi. I just think he's going to play off Nathan Cleary really, really well. You go to the forwards of Leota and Lindsay Smith. These are two very similar-minded forwards, in my opinion. I don't think there's a clear out-and-out leader here in this front rower, where similar to, say, like a Bulldogs with a Maxi King and a Samuel Hughes, even though Max King would be the leader, not that I necessarily think he should be. But these guys are very much kind of on a like-for-likeness, just with Leota having that more probably a little bit more of that quality overall than Lindsay, but Lindsay is a really tough player as well. Is a very strong prop department, but it's not as strong as, say, the Payne Haas area. But Corey Jensen would be on a very like-for-like in a lot of ways with Lindsay Smith for mine, and then there is a gap between Payne Haas and Leota. So you do look at the Broncos and say they've got a bigger forward pack there. The number 9 of Mitch Kenny is so underrated. He's criminally underrated. He's one of the best defensive hookers in the comp. He gets their line set perfectly well. I think he's criminally underrated. And then you go to the back row, Scotty Sorensen, Luke Garner. Very interesting that Isaiah Papali'i is actually on the bench here in comparison. But Sorensen and Luke Garner, very strong. Papali'i off the bench, very strong. That is not a department you should be worried about whatsoever. And then Isaiah Yeo is one of the smartest locks in the business at the 13. The Panthers bench is also gangbusters of Jack Cogger. Great versatility there in regards to getting some stuff going. Lou Rumpateo, strong. Isaiah Papali'i, very, very strong. Kalani going, up-and-comer. Thomas Jenkins, versatility there. And Freddie Lussick overall for the versatility. This game is going to come down to the wire. I don't think this is going to be a blowout by any means. It's just so hard to read what the Broncos are going to do this year. And the Panthers, I'm pretty convinced in what I'm going to see this year. So from that prediction, I am actually going to go to underdog here. And this is a really hard one. I'm going to go, because this is the margin game, I'm only going to make it by 4. But I can understand why the Broncos are favourites here. I can understand why. I don't know if they're going to be able to get the season off to a belter. I feel like they'll come home strong like they did last year. And this is a real trial by fire in the first game where the Panthers, they're hungry after, effectively being embarrassed last year. In their standards, they got embarrassed. I feel like they're going to come in here firing this Panthers team, and I do feel like they'll be able to pip them at the line. But it's going to be a close game that could go literally either way. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. Dasman says, if anything this year has proven it is a preseason game, Hull lost to York, who had never played a first division game ever, then got pumped by Leeds. Fair enough. B. Lloyd says, this happens every year. They want to bag us out before the season starts, typical journalists. Well, B. Lloyd, let's not pretend like the Broncos are the most evident team in regards to that. There are teams like the Tigers that will laugh at you for that. The Gold Coast Titans fans will laugh at you for that. Like, there's a comparison level of, teams that get slandered on and then teams that get benefited. You guys get promoted to absolute oblivion. You guys shouldn't be complaining about the typical media. This incident, I don't like that the Broncos are copying heat for, because I just feel like Michael Maguire doesn't deserve that criticism as we speak compared to other coaches. But it just, let's not pretend like the Broncos aren't handled very, very well by Queensland media in comparison to other teams. Michael says, Maguire loves to break some droughts. Yeah, he definitely does. Dasmate says, Liam Martin to put that 10-day contract player on his ass again. Brighton says, thanks for backing Madge, mate, because Payne's leaving the media's mind that equals must be Madge's fault, meanwhile ignoring Payne's own words. Yeah, but Payne Haas was going to leave underneath Kevin Walters. I was literally at the game between the Titans and the Broncos when every Broncos fan booed him at his own stadium because he was going to leave to go, I think, to the Roosters. I think it was to the Roosters. And this was about 4 years ago or so, 3-4 years ago. But I was there at the game where all the Broncos fans booed him because he was going to leave. So it can't be Michael Maguire's fault, because why was he going to leave that he ultimately turned his back on? But why was he going to leave before Michael Maguire? Now he's leaving when Michael Maguire's there, but the thought process was already there prior. It was like he just wanted to go and win that competition. He won that competition, has been given an offer down there in Sydney. I don't feel like there's any problem with that whatsoever. And I don't feel like Broncos fans should have any problem with it either. You should be upset and disappointed that maybe he's leaving, but I don't think that you should be upset at the reasoning behind it or why he's doing it. He has won that premiership. He doesn't feel like he needs to prove anything more here. He wants to be like a Glenn Lazarus type where, you win at multiple clubs, I guess. Because Glenn Lazarus won at the Raiders, the Storm and the Broncos, and Payne Haas with the Broncos, and now he wants to do it with the Rabbitohs, who'll have a really good team next year. So, yeah, look, I think that Payne Haas is not leaving because of Michael Maguire. I think Payne Haas is leaving because he wants to go and try his luck elsewhere. Brenton says that Broncos logo is shocking. I'd be writing an email. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that logo in comparison. I didn't mind the Bulldogs one as much. I think the Broncos one's a bit strange for mine. Other Bunny says, Panthers for me at least aren't really as scary as they once were. They're still a formidable team, but compared to a couple of years ago, they've slowed down at least. I don't know if you would have been saying that in the second half of last year. In the first half, sure, I would agree with you, but the second half of last year, I don't know if you would have had that same mindset. Nay says it needs to all go for the Broncos again this year. It needs to all go right. Oh, it needs to all go ref for the Broncos this year. The Broncos need everything to go right from again. I don't think this is like it's in. Well, it's in their hands, but like I don't think it's necessarily like in their hands in the sense that just simply they go and do it again. I do feel like just things need to fall in place again, which is I guess what you could say for every team. No, Nate will talk about that in a second. Up the Bunny says, and not to mention that they have no Liam Martin is a big loss for them, and I have tipped the Broncos to win. I feel that they are willing to win this game more than from the loss against Hull. Sure, but Liam Martin isn't going to be the decisive factor in regards to whether I tip the Panthers or not. At the end of the day, Scotty Sorensen and Luke Garner are fantastic, and they've got Isaiah Papali'i on the bench. Yes, Liam Martin is a blow, but their forward pack is unbelievable. Their halves pairing, for mine, I definitely do prefer over the Broncos. And then their 1 through 5, I'm just more convinced in the certainty that the Panthers' backline is going to be solid compared to what we saw and what we see from the Broncos. The Broncos are explosive, but the Panthers are restrictive, and I feel like it will come down to a really close game. Dasmate says, QR code scanner, the Lakers need a centre. Shout out my man, Tim Manor, Panthers by 50. Okay, Dasmate. Okay. Brian says, if it's a blowout, I reckon that's Penrith. If it's close, I think the Broncos can get it done. Broncos are probably more likely the team of a blowout, but the Panthers don't give up. They're not a huge... they're a pretty good defensive team when they're all here and fit together. I feel like on paper you'd be looking at the Broncos being more of the blowout team than the Panthers, but I can see what you're talking about. I do get that part. As it is, I think the Broncos put 60 on them and essentially wipe out their premiership chances in round 1. That's my educated guess anyway. Yeah, definitely not an educated guess there from you, Adam, but thank you for the guess there from a Brisbane Broncos fan. We really did appreciate that, just without the appreciation part, but it did happen, so thank you for putting that part there, just without the thank you part as well. Brian says he's done more for the Broncos than just about anyone. We can't complain as fans. Absolutely. You should think of him in a very positive level. Payne Haas, one of them, probably does go down as the best front rower of all time. Do think that if he wants to go down as the best front rower of all time, he does need to go and win on the premiership, though. I don't think you can... I think on an individual basis, you can say that if you're taking a draft, you're probably taking Payne Haas first. And I'm talking all time. You probably are taking Payne Haas first on an individual basis. But you do need those premierships to kind of back up your name rather than just the one. So it'll be very similar to like a LeBron and Michael Jordan comparison there, in specifically referring to the front row forward department. I think it would have a similar comparison there. He needs to win more than just the one premiership for mine. Scott says, I hope this is a good game. Ibrahim says, ADCD, which means Titans win the premiership. Well, Titans will win the premiership, Ibrahim. We know that part. No, we definitely know that part. But Adzi D is just unfortunately drunk here on a Wednesday afternoon. Onbeck says, God, Broncos fans the worst. Well, there you go, guys. I have put my tip in. I put Panthers by 4. I'm actually going to change this, and I'm going to say Panthers by 2. Oh, not 22, gee whiz. Panthers by 2. I don't know. 28% is crazy, by the way. 72% of people tipped the Broncos. 28% is Panthers. I feel like that should be 50-50. I feel like there's so many Panthers haters, and they're just riding on their downfall that they don't want to tip him. They just don't want to do it. That's what I'm feeling. By the way, we've been going for an hour and I only did 3 games. Jeez, this might be a long stream here, lads. But if there will be all the timestamps and whatnot. So, all right, there you go. There's the Broncos versus the Panthers game. We're going to move now into the next one, which is going to be Saturday in the afternoon. The Cronulla Sharkies taking on the Gold Coast Titans. Obviously, guys, hit that like button and subscribe if you are new around here. And if you haven't joined the tipping competition, it is over there in the pinned comment. Now, obviously, I'm a Gold Coast Titans fan, guys, so I am going to look at this in a more positive way for the Titans than you probably are. You are probably going to see this as an easy win for the Sharkies, and sure, I can see why you're valid to think that. I get that. I completely understand it. But from my perspective, I am a Titans fan. I am going to see the positives out of my team early on in the year. You might see my mindset and thought process change as the year goes along, but right now I'm just like you. Whether you are a Knights fan, whether you are an Eels fan, whether you are anybody fan, you are always going to have some positive belief about your team before round 1. So I will always remind you, I am a Titans fan. That's what you're going to hear throughout this section. Take what I say and hear parts of it for a thought process and provoking thought, but don't take it as necessarily gospel, but you will at least see the different perspective to what you have. So take my perspective, take your perspective, put it together, and then you'll have a greater understanding for what we're going to be watching in this game. But the Cronulla Sharks, they come into this game against the Gold Coast Titans at Ocean Protect Stadium in Sydney. The Sharkies, they come off a well, look, not very disappointing pre-season. They did lose that first game 66-18, but also kind of who gives a shit to the Eels because they didn't play literally anybody. Then they won 40-6 over the Raiders, but the Raiders didn't really play literally anybody. So the pre-season doesn't really matter overall for mine. For the Cronulla Sharks standard. In 2025, they came 5th position on 36 points, equal with the Brisbane Broncos there. Realistically, they'd be feeling disappointed they didn't finish in the top 4. At the end of the day, they got into the preliminary final, so who cares? But they didn't progress from the year beforehand. The Sharkies did finish in the prelim final and then also finish in the prelim final 2 years in a row. They need to go and progress this year. This needs to be a real consistent year this year. They are without Mulitalo. Will Kennedy is going to be a massive question mark. Let's get into their lineup. So Will Kennedy is the fullback, with the wingers being Sione Katoa and Samuel Stonestreet. The centres are Jesse Ramian and Kale Iro. 5'8" is Braden Trindle, with the halfback being Nico Hines. Front row forwards are Adam Fanor-Blake and Thomas Hazelton, with the number 9 being Blake Brayley, who is the captain. You go to the back row, Britton Nakora and Billy Burns. Love that back row. 13 is Jesse Colhoun. Interchange of Siasifa Talakai, Toby Rudolph, Oregon Gafusi, Braden Ueli, Hoheba Peru, and Chris Viaila, with the reserves being Jaden Beryl, Michael Gabriel, and Nivo Peru, with the coach being Craig Fitzgibbon. This team I've had so much faith in for years now. I've had so much faith in them for years now to get the job done, and they haven't gotten the job done. Why have they not been able to get the job done yet? I just don't get it. You look at their stats from last year. I feel like their stats from the year beforehand, I'm actually going to go and get 2024 up. I feel like their stats in 2024 are actually better. I feel like it might have been. I'm probably wrong here. But in the regular season in 2024, the Sharks finished in 4th with 653 points for and 431 points against, whilst here they had 599, this is last year, 599 points for and 490 against. So in regards to the attack, 599 to 653, they lost 54 points there on the attack, and defensively 431 in 2024 compared to 490. So they added 67 to their against in 2025. So it was a regression on both sides of the ball in 2025 compared to 2024. And they did also win, I think, one less game there. Yeah, they won one less game with 15 compared to the 16 overall. So that is not a good sign. Yes, they made the preliminary final. They, at the very least in last year's prelim, were more competitive than I feel like they were in 2024. So you go to last year's prelim, they lost 22-14 to the Storm, and you go in 2024 where they lost 26-6 to the Panthers, and that was a much more convincing result there for the Panthers than it was for the Storm, in my opinion, where the Sharks, I felt like had the opportunity to win the game, but unfortunately this man here, Will Kennedy, had an absolute nightmare game in last year's game. That really prevented them from getting over the line for mine. They did have the opportunity. The last 2 years have made the same plays. They added Adam Fanor-Blake, but they've regressed in both the defence and also their attack. So that is a major concern there. But yeah, Kennedy had a great first half of the year last year, fell off the complete cliff at the second half of the year. He's very rocks and diamonds, can have a really strong game, but can also be absolutely awful. And I mean, like, can be the worst fullback in the competition, but also has the opportunity to be in the top 2, top 3 fullbacks in the competition on any given game day as well. That's the kind of player that he is, but you are seeing more of the rocks than you are of the diamonds. Liam Eisen is knocking on the door of a spot, but unfortunately he has a few injury issues, which is why you're not even seeing him on the bench, or you didn't see him in the preseason. Liam Eisen is the next guy upcoming for the Sharkies, but Will Kennedy needs to, especially considering he's only on a 1-year contract, this needs to be a massive year for him. In regards to the centres, very strong. Ramian Kale Iro, wingers, Sione Katoa and Samuel Stonestreet. Mulitalo is out for a long portion with an injury. I think it's an ACL, if I'm not mistaken. God bless him. But Sione Katoa, very underrated, very good there, not only for the Sharkies, but also for Tonga. And Stonestreet will get a job done. The 1 through 5 is still very solid, even without the loss of Mulitalo and even with the fact that Millen Kennedy is inconsistent. But talk about inconsistent, we obviously get to the halves of Braden Trindle and Nico Hines. Very good overall, but not consistent whatsoever. And when the going gets tough and the big games come, these guys go missing. They do. And I love Nico. I still don't believe he's a 7, but I do love Nico. I feel like they need to put him into the 6, but I don't necessarily think Braden Trindle should be put into the 7 because they'll just play the same way. At the end of the day, if this doesn't work this year in this halves pairing, you need to move on from it. I don't know how you move on from it, but you need to move on for it. So you need this to be the year for these guys to work out. Hines and Trindle together, they are good, but you just don't. They don't really have a collective good game together. Usually it's one guy having a good game, the other one not so much, which is disappointing. It's just really hard to get that continuity with those halves, especially considering the continuity of them over the years. We're not seeing the continuity overall. And then you go to the forwards. This is actually a really, really good forward pack. This is actually, for mine, one of the best forward packs in the game. I'll put it out there. I would argue this is one of the best forward packs in the game. Adam Fanua-Blake, unbelievable. Blake Brayley, clear second best hooker in the game for me right now. Hazleton, very, very strong. Britton Okora, international. Didn't get in for Billy Burns last year. Billy Burns is in the team now. But Britton Okora and Billy Burns is just such a juicy back row pairing. I love that. Craig Fitzgibbon has gone with them. And then Jesse Colquhoun, look, maybe that's the issue in regards to the Sharkies, in regards to their 13, but, that'll be sorted out. Their bench is also very, very good. The Sharks team does have a very, very strong feel to it, and they should go well again, but they have got this real knack of beating these easy teams well, and then struggling against the big teams, maybe barring one or two here or there games, right? So, look, the Sharks realistically will come into this game thinking they're going to win this 13 plus overall. I just don't think that's going to happen, but I do feel like they definitely should be favourites and they definitely should win this game based off of their own team's merit. Now, for the Gold Coast Titans, we've got the fullback Keanu Kenny, with the wingers being Asiala Tili, Faimani on debut alongside Philip Sami. The centres are Jojo Fafita and Max Fine, with the 5'8" being AJ Brimson, and the 7 is Lachlan Ilias with the injury to Jaden Campbell for the next 4 to 5 weeks. You go to the front row forwards of Mwaki Whaika and Tino for Asumalawi, who is the captain. And then you go to the back row. Arama Howe gets the start, and Bo Firma alongside him, with Chris Randall as the lock. Interchange of Curtis Moran, Tukamahir Simpkins, Cleese Haas, Cooper Bye, Luke Summerton, and Zane Harrison on the interchange. Love to see that. With the reserves being Jalen DeGroot, Jensen Talmapo, and Josh Paxton. The coach is the newly incoming Josh Hannay. Now, Josh Hannay does come across from the Cronulla Sharks. He was the assistant coach there when they were in their preliminary finals. A great player in his day. He's a new coach of the Titans. The boys are all saying they love him. You can sense the vibe, sense the culture shift in regards to how they are operating in regards to the coach. They weren't a big fan of Desi Hasler. They weren't. But they are a big fan of Josh Hannay. So that is a really, really positive sign there for this club going forward. Keanu Kenny, international fullback. He's one of the best fullbacks in the game. Keanu Kenny is so elusive. Played for the Maldives. Played for New Zealanders as their fullback in the Pacific Cup. He just has so much going for him. He's still so young. Comes back from that injury. Last year, he was injured for a majority of the season. He is literally so young, man. He was born in 2004. He's only 22 years old. Well, I think he's actually 21 years old now. Yeah, he's still only 21 years old, going on 22 this year. He has so much going for him, man. He's so elusive, so exciting. Just, really in your face. I love it. He's sneaky everywhere you go, man. So Keanu Kenny is going to have a gangbuster year. And then on the wings, now this is where a lot of people will go off the Gold Coast Titans because they won't know a great deal about him. Siala Tili Fatamani, he's very strong, defensively resilient. Didn't see an unbelievable amount in the preseason, but has massive high reps about him coming into the game. If you've got Supercoach, he's definitely one to watch out for because he will put in an effort defensively, which is something the Titans have lacked for many years now. And Faimani is the next big thing coming out of the Gold Coast, with the other winger being Philip Sami, who can be rocks and diamonds, isn't as good as he was 4 or 5 years ago, but is still very tough in regards to meterage out of the back. He will hopefully put in a shift along Max Fine. We don't know what he's going to be like here alongside Fine. He comes across from the Dragons. That is definitely probably the biggest concern that you'd be looking for in this Titans team right now, that 4 and 5, how they're going to work together. Because Jojo Fafita and Faimani, they're actually the defensive side when you're looking at it. Ultimately, these two guys are the ones that you're looking for, the defensive resilience. So I don't think there's going to be an unbelievable amount of tries scored down that side. I'll be honest with you. I feel like if you're going to target any side, it would be the Max Fine and Philip Sami side. But I'm hoping for the best out of those guys as well. The halves, massive question mark here. They got Zane Harrison knocking on the door. Jaden Campbell, he's injured. He's going to be here. He's going to stick around with the Gold Coast Titans. But do I think he's a halfback? Not necessarily. I think he's a 6. AJ Brimson demanding to play in the spine. Don't necessarily think that's should be the case, but with that being said, did have a good pre-season when he came in that game against the Melbourne Storm, and we won that game. Full strength on full strength the first half. We actually won that first half as well. I've got high hopes here for Bremo, but I still have my doubts overall and how he's going to work with Ilias. But this does give me a bit of oomph. I do actually like this halves pairing of Ilias and AJ Brimson, but I feel like they would need to work into the season a few games to really be clicking alongside each other. Ilias in the NRL hasn't really proven himself. When he was at the Dragons, disappointing. When he was at the Rabbitohs, disappointing. But at the Dragons, he wasn't given too much of an opportunity compared to, obviously, Carl Flanagan, who was the one who got to stick in over the two of them because his father is there. So I do feel like Ilias had a bit of a rough end of the stick at the St. George Illawarra Dragons, whilst at the Rabbitohs, I can understand what happened there. But he also wasn't playing well, got injured. Wasn't playing well, got dropped to New South Wales Cup. Then they put somebody else in, I can't remember who it was, and he didn't play well. They wanted to bring Ilias back into the NRL team, but he got injured in the New South Wales Cup, and that was kind of the death of him there at South Sydney Rabbitohs. So Ilias, this is his make or break year at the Gold Coast Titans. This is his make or break time of his career where he has to put in. So expect a big game out of him here. Then you go to the forwards, and it's incredible on paper. Arama Howe was the one that you're not going to really know, but Arama Howe had such an incredible pre-season, a massive up-and-comer, played over there in the second division of the Super League. I don't know what you call it over there, but he played over there in the second division of the Super League, looked really, really good as a 13. He just looks really fit and raring to go. He comes in the back row instead of Josh Paxton, who we were expecting to be there, but Daddy Ram, he looks unbelievable, man, and Bowie Firma are fantastic. We lose David Fafita, but you bring in Arama Howe, who does have so much going for him. The forwards there of Micah Footaway and Tino Fasil Malawi would have been awesome to see Jimmy Jolliffe coming in off the bench, but obviously he's injured for the season, which is really, really frustrating. But the forwards are fantastic there, and the number 9, Sam Verrills, I do feel like he's going to be a lot more explosive under Josh Hannay comparatively Des Hasler, because I do believe, well, this is what I was told, I can't tell you who by it, but Des told Sam that he only had to focus on his defense and not focus on his attack, and that's why you saw that regression from his Roosters days of his attack being taken out of his system and being more so focusing on that defense. So I feel like Hannay's going to be able to get that balanced Sam Verrills out of him again, which is going to be really, really good signs. And then Chrissy Randall in as the 13. And as long as he's not playing the back row, he's such an underrated player, man. Chris Randall is just such a tough unit, and I love him playing in that 13. Just quickly, Stephen Dingo, appreciate you for joining up as a member, my brother. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. So look, that forward pack is very strong for the Titans, in my opinion. And then you go to the interchange, and I feel like this is the most well-rounded interchange that we've seen from a Titans team in a very long time. Curtis Morin's so tough coming across from the Dogs. Tukumahaya Simpkins has shown so much positivity in his little stints that he's been able to show. Cleese Haas owns the poverty franchise. Cooper Bye is the best up-and-coming player in the NRL right now. Everyone's talking about him being that next big thing. It's a big call here from the Titans not to start him, but I like that they're not starting him immediately as well. And then you go to Luke Summerton, who showed some real positive signs in the preseason. We need to see him really explode here after his Panthers days. Didn't really get too much of an opportunity there. Well, he did, but he didn't really take it by the full grasp. Now he'll get his best chance here at the Titans. And then Zane Harrison, one of the best up-and-coming halfbacks in the competition. That halves position is not locked down for mine. I do feel like the halves position is just simply not locked down. So it's a great chance for him to show what he's got. Look, if you think across both these teams from an unbiased perspective, I don't think the Titans win this game. I don't. Right? I feel like the Sharks should win this game. And I am going to do that. I am going to say on a realistic level, this is what you should do. But I do think there is an upset chance here on the basis. So look, guys, because I'm going to be as unbiased as I possibly can here on the channel, I am going to go and tip the Sharkies there. But I think that the reason why I just wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket in the first game here is because Ilias and Brimson, we don't know what they're going to look like in the halves. Max Fianay and Phillips Army, we don't know what they're going to look like out there on that at that wing centre pairing. We also don't know what we're going to see out of Sila, Tilly, Faimani, and Jojo Fafita. The back row is, I'm pretty sure I know what to expect. The third, and I definitely know what to expect. The front rowers, I definitely know what to expect, and 9 I know what to expect in the back row, and the interchange, I know what to expect. But pretty much everywhere in the 2 through 7, I will question the early part of the season in regards to how quickly they move. Now, I predicted the Titans in my preseason predictions video in, I think, 12th or 11th. Where did I put them? 17, 16, 15, 14. I think I'll put them in 13th or 12th. And the thing is, because I think next year could be huge. I genuinely believe the Titans next year could be a top 8 team. Next year. This year, they are still moving past the Des era. I feel like Josh Hannay is going to need to get a few rounds out of these guys before we start seeing those real strong adjustments. We saw positivity in the preseason. We did really well against the Storm. I would love to be proven wrong here. You wouldn't see a more happy. I'd probably tear up on stream if we won this game. That I would be really happy to be proven wrong here. But I just feel like there's consistency from the Sharks team across years that should open this well. However, the Sharks don't normally win round 1. They're not a good round 1 team comparison to the Melbourne Storm. Also, the Titans, they're not really usually a good team overall, so you forget about individual round statistics. I do have to go with the Sharks here. I do on my brain rather than my heart, my head over my heart. I do have to go with the Sharkies here. But I still feel like the Titans have a lot of unknowns that could win this game. The unknowns will be there. But if you're going via a tip, you probably do have to go with the Sharks. On Bex, it's really high on the Titans this year. I really like all their juniors coming through. We do have a lot of good juniors. A lot of good juniors coming through at the Gold Coast. Titans, Zane Harrison, Sila Faimani, Arama Howe. He's getting his spot. Josh Paxton looks really, really nice. Yeah, no, we do have some real positive signs going forward overall. And if you look across the competition, a lot of our juniors have actually gone into big time teams, and they're playing well. Jerome Hughes, Cody Walker was with us at one stage as the youngsters, and there's like Tanner Boyd, starting halfback for the Warriors. Lafayette and Canberra goes across there now. Like David Feeder now across over at the. I guess David Feeder was Titans, then Broncos, and then back to Titans kind of deal. But anyway, long story short, that we do have quite a few players that have come through the youngster leagues here on the Gold Coast that have gone and exploded elsewhere. Ibrahim says, if I'm being realistic, the Titans could put up a great fight against the Sharks. The only problem is that the Sharks always find a way to beat us and by a lot. Yeah, I feel like we'll put in an effort. I do. I feel like this will... look, I think there's an entire potential here that the 13 plus is on the cards. Don't get me wrong. I do think that we could definitely lose this game 13 plus, but I will back in the Sharks 1-12. Slava says, can't see Sharks doing much this year. Titans flog them. I feel like the Sharks are still going to be a top 8 team. They're still a top 8 team for mine. I think I had them in 6th position. Up the Bunny says, Titans are quite an interesting team to say the least. Young and upcoming talents making the Titans a great team to watch. They are definitely a team that people should watch more this year because they are an unknown. You have that automatic thought process that they're going to lose. You just have that automatic thought process that they're going to struggle and they're going to fall apart. But you also should now think and say, well, this is a completely different team. They've got a new coach. The organisation has been tinkered with, and there is some positivity coming out of the Gold Coast from the players and from the fans and from the youth players in Cooper and whatnot coming through. People are respecting our youth players. It is a new era that seems to be coming here for the Gold Coast, which hopefully we can take us out of that poor past into a positive future. Nate says Titans 1-12 and Dicko Hines to cry about it. Why do you have a problem with Nico Hines? He's a lovely bloke. Up the Bunny says Nico Hines is a fullback, not a halfback. Disagree. I think that Nico Hines was a fullback, and then I think he's a 5'8". I don't think that he's a fullback anymore by any means. I think that'd be nearly his worst position right now, a fullback nowadays. But talk to me a few years back, then sure. But I think he'd be 5'8" now. Royds Randall score a try. Get around Royds Randall, Brenton. Good old Royds Randall. I forgot to tell him about that. I'll message him about that when I remember. Scott James, the Ilias will play a lot better. Doesn't have the pressure like he did at the Dragons. No, bullshit. He doesn't have pressure. Like, at the end of the day, he's not the starting halfback here. He's fighting for his career right now. He definitely has pressure, but the best players need to thrive under the pressure. So I don't think that's a negative to say that he's got pressure, but he has more pressure here than he did the Dragons because this is his last chance. If he doesn't perform, he's done. If Ilias does not perform with the Gold Coast Titans, no other team will pick him up. He is under a lot of pressure, and he needs to, keep out. He needs to try and force his way in over Jaden Campbell. But he also needs to keep out the incoming Zane Harrison. and AJ Brimson's there as well. So, like, he does have pressure. Stephen Dingo says, should have done it a year ago. You make great content. Appreciate you, Stephen. X-Ray says, Titans 50 plus. Sharks out of the water. Fame Marnie is from the Panthers system. He's about to put a hat trick on the Sharks. That's right. He is on the Panthers system, yeah. Bretton says, Gus says any team can make the top 8 this year, bar no major injuries. I tend to agree. Cows, Dragons are slightly questionable. Dragons looked good against the Dogs in a lot of ways. Looked bad and good. But didn't look like a last place team is what I should say. Cows didn't look great. Cows did not look great, man. But anyway, that's a whole another conversation for itself. Other Bunny says, what position is Cooper Bai, the upcoming Rookie of the Year, alongside Hiamasi Makasini? Yeah, Makasini looks like he absolutely could be that Rookie of the Year. Cooper Bai is either 13 back row or front row. I would personally chuck him in the third. I wouldn't mind a bit of back row. I could definitely see a bit of back row, but 13 is probably where his main position is. But it's very difficult because Chris Randall is such a strong 13. The back row looks really, really strong, and the front rowers, you just can't put him in over the top of Mo or Tino. So he's in a bit of an awkward position, but overall, he loves Gold Coast. He's signed on for years. You know, he believes in what we're doing. But no, surprised he isn't starting. No, I'm definitely understanding why he isn't starting. Chris Randall deserves that 13 over Cooper Bai. Cooper Bai needs to earn it. He absolutely needs to earn it. Everyone says, yeah, Ilias is under major pressure considering his downfall in form. Yeah, 100%. All right, well, that's it, guys. I have gone with my head over my heart here of Sharkies over the Titans, but, you know, I'm hoping to be proven wrong, and I'm hoping for a close game here, and hopefully we get the upset. We'll be live for it, as you'll see my ups and down emotions throughout it all. But let's move into the second last game of the weekend, which is the Manly Seagulls versus the Canberra Raiders. Guys, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new around here. If you have not already joined our tipping competition, do go into the pinned comment and join the tipping comp. See if you can chase me down. I'm in number 1 after 2 rounds, son. I'm in number 1. Fire me up. Never going to lose a tip ever again. But let's get into Manly versus the Raiders. This is at 4 Pines Park in Sydney. Manly look really underwhelming coming into this year. The Raiders look very interesting coming this year. They're known for an up and down team. They'll have a really good year and they'll have a really bad year. They are just really known for those 50-50 performances across a season-long basis. So last year was a massive up year. Will they be able to achieve it again? I did actually put them in pre-season predictions-wise. I did put them down in 8th position because I'm still just very unnervy in regards to where they could be. They've got a great forward pack, they've got a great back line, but they've changed their half, and the half has actually gone to the Manly Seagulls here. So, the Manly Seagulls, their fullback is Tom Trbojevic, who is the captain, with the wingers being Jason Saab and Lehigh Hopewada, the centre, Tolotau Kuala, and Ruben Garrick. The 5'8" is Luke Brooks, with the halfback being Jamal Fogarty. Then you go to the props for Taniela Paseka and Sisiwa Takiaho. The number 9 is Jake Simpkin. Back row of Hamali Olakuatu and Ben Trbojevic, with the 13 being Jake Trbojevic. Interchange of Joe Walsh, Kobe Hetherington, Ethan Bullimore, Nathan Brown, Clayton Faulalo, and Brandon Wakeham, with the reserves being Corey Waddle, Blake Wilson, and Paul Bryan. Coach is Anthony Seibold. I'll say it again, I'll say it on the weekend, and I'll say it for the next 10 weeks straight. You need Joe Walsh starting in those halves pairing. I wonder how long it's going to take Seibold to recognise this. Fogarty comes in. This is going to be superbly interesting in regards to how their halves do work out. Jamal Fogarty didn't have a good game at all in that game against the Rabbitohs in the preseason. Neither did Luke Brooks. Joe Walsh, guess what, did have a good game against the Warriors and then did look good when he came on against the Rabbitohs. I don't feel like there's anywhere near enough X factor in that halves pairing for Manly. I just don't. There's just no X factor there. Jamal Fogarty is just I will do what I need to do and get the job done. Give me 1 second and we'll have a drink. I think he is not a guy that you expect for, you know, just a wild performance where he's going to create unlimited opportunities. He's going to have a solid kicking game. He's going to put you into the right area, but it's going to be very basic at that for mine. And Luke Brooks is just not the guy that we've really wanted to see from him compared to that 2017 season. So the halves are a massive concern. Please chuck Joe Walsh in there as soon as you can, because Walsh looks like one of the best upcoming halves in the game right now. Tom Trbojevic, God bless him. Please stay healthy. Touch wood, he is healthy this year. We want to see the best players on the field at all times. When Tom Trbojevic is healthy, that's fantastic. He's one of the best fullbacks in the game. He is, however, he's only 29. 1996 is 29, yeah? Yeah, well, he'd be 30 this year. He's 30 this year. That's actually not as old as I actually thought he was getting to. I think it was more 31, 32. But Tom Trbojevic still actually should be in the prime of his career. You know, outside of those injuries, he should be in the prime of his career. The back line is is very defensively weak here. Jason Saab, Tala Takwala, Ruben Garrick, and Hopewade, they can score tries, but they will give up tries. They will give up tries for sure, but this is a very fast and speedy and electric attacking-wise backline, but defensively definitely susceptible. And then you go to the forwards of Paseka and Takiaho. Oh, there's just no excitement at Manly this year, man. There just isn't. There's no, X factor besides a guy like Olakuatu or Talatakwala or maybe even Tommy T. Overall, there's just no X factor here. The 9, Jake Simpkin. Back row is Olakuatu and Ben Trebojevic. Olakuatu, unbelievable, but how much is he going to carry you across? And then Jake Trebojevic in the 13, not what he once was. It's just a whole bunch of right now. It's just a whole bunch of I don't know kind of how to give you a positive review here about Manly where, they could prove me wrong and prove the rest of the NRL community wrong in regards to them having a poor performance because they've also got coach Anthony Seibold. I agree. Paseka is underrated, but it's not like he's an X Factor underrated. He's just a very solid underrated. He'll go through his business. He'll do his job. He does his great work. But it's not like he's providing the X Factor. And what Manly are missing is X Factor. That's what they're missing. They're missing energy. They're missing creativity. They're missing excitement. That's why I think they need Joey Walsh in the halves because he brings that. You saw that he was at least trying things. He was bringing excitement. When Luke Brooks and Jamal Fogarty were on the field, we didn't see anything. Such jack shit. So that is a major concern. And then look at the bench. Kobe Hetherington, Ethan Bullimore, Nathan Brown, Clayton Faulala, and Brendan Wakeham. At a push, I'll say Ethan Bullimore has the X Factor. Can make a mistake, but he does have X Factor. Kobe Hetherington, okay. Nathan Brown, yikes. Clayton Faulala, okay. Brandon Wakeham, yikes. This is not a Manly team that you're a great deal excited about this year. And that's why, for mine, it looks really odd here that Manly are actually the slight favourites in this game. Because how are you looking at this team and saying that they should be... I think that's... Oh, boy. Anyway, I'm sorry, Manly fans. I would like to give you a better review here of your team, but what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you my true opinion, but I'd like to see them do better for my dad. My dad thinks they're going to win the comp every single year. I don't think so right now, that's for sure. But that's a Manly review. I just don't see an unbelievable amount of excitement here. And then you go to the Canberra Raiders. You've got K.O. Weeks as the fullback with the wingers being Savelio Tamale and Xavier Savage. Centres of Simi Sasangi and Sebastian Chris. Obviously, Matty Tomoko is out. The 5'8" is Easton Strange with Ethan Sanders getting the knock as the halfback. Then you go the front row forwards of Josh Papali'i and Joseph Tarpany with the number 9 being Tommy Starling. The back row is Hudson Young and Noah Martin, with the 13 being Corey Horsburgh. Then the interchange of Jaden Brayley, Zach Hosking, Atta Mariota, Morgan Smithies, Dane Laurie, and Jed Schilt, with the reserves Matty Nicholson, Matty Tomoko, and Paddy. Wow, Matty Tomoko's actually been dropped. And the coach is Ricky Stewart. Matty Tomoko and Paddy have both been dropped here. Same with Matty Nicholson. Ricky Stewart is a great man manager. I trust in his thought process, but I am surprised that Simi Sasangi gets the nod in over Matty Tomoko in that centre department. That is very interesting. I don't really have too much complaints here in regards to Canberra. I just don't know consistently if they're going to be able to have as good a season as they did last year with this team. Their forward pack is just a menace. Josh Papali'i, Joseph Tarpany, Tom Starling, Hudson Young, Noah Martin, and Corey Horsburgh is an incredible forward pack. Noah Martin, young play, coming up the business right now. Coming up the grapevine, Raiders are really hyped about him, and he's able to get that nod in as the starting back row of a guy like Zach Hosking and Jaden Brayley in on the bench there, rather than Paddy is super interesting, but yeah, it's confusing. But Ricky Stewart knows what he's doing. That forward pack is just an absolute menace, man, and the back line is very strong. Simi Sasangi is a very Rocks and Diamonds player. I definitely don't like him in the halves. I would much prefer him in the centres than in the halves, so I think this is still a fine positioning. K.O. Weeks, great fullback. Wingers, Savelio and Xavier Savage, very strong. Simi Sasangi, Sebastian Chris. Chris is one of the more underrated players in the entire NRL for mine. This is a very good 1 through 5. So it all hinges on this 6 and 7 pairing this year. Jamal Fogarty, he goes from the Raiders to the Manly Seagulls. He was a solid player, Jamal Fogarty at the Raiders, and he was able to get the best out of Ethan Strange because Ethan Strange was the X factor. He was able to really diversify and create that versatility at the Canberra Raiders. Now, you go to Ethan Sanders, where there is a concern that these guys are very similar. There is a concern where Sanders is going to want to play his hand alongside Ethan Strange rather than to get the best out of Ethan Strange. And that's what Jamal Fogarty did so well. So that's what I'm going to be looking for this weekend in this game, how Ethan Strange and Ethan Sanders work together. Kobe Black has been signed. Maybe he's the guy that goes forward if Sanders and Strange doesn't work out, because Sanders did play against the Dolphins in round 27 of last year when the Dolphins played a full-strength team. The Rays played, nobody, and that's why Sanders got a gig. And then obviously they got absolutely pieced apart. I wasn't too happy with how he performed, considering that he is really trying to play for an NRL gig. So look, I'm pretty confident that the Raiders win this game. I know this is in Manly, but I just don't see why Manly are favourites here. And I can see 77% of people have tipped the Raiders as well. I just don't know why people are so heavy, or the bookies are heavy on Manly at the moment. There must be something that I'm missing. There must be something, because if you looked at that preseason, the team didn't look great. There's a lot of going around right now at Manly, and it just doesn't look spectacular. So I'm going to tip the Canberra Raiders. I'm going to go 1-12. I don't feel like they usually win by an absolute monster, but I just have a little bit more confidence there in Canberra for sure. Other Bunny says, Paseka is underrated in my opinion, but Manly is a weird team. Yeah, very weird at the moment. Nate says, Raiders by plenty. Brighton says, Bookie's got this one real close. Am I missing something? I thought Raiders would be clear favourites. I think the reason why the Raiders aren't as heavy favourites, if they had Jamal Fogarty still, it would have been the same team and they would have been heavy favourites. But with Ethan Sanders there, maybe that's what's really balking the bookies at the moment. Maybe that's what they're balking at. Because, yeah, there has to be something that I'm missing here for Manly to be actually slight-edged favourites. There has to be. It has to be. Like, it's really... I don't know what I'm missing here for that to be as close as it is. Stephen says, not that anyone will care, but I hate the Seagulls. Yeah, a lot of people hate the Manly Seagulls. I don't think people hate them as much as they did previously, but they definitely were the largest hated team for many years, and now I just feel like a lot of people don't really care too much. Hallis says, Canberra's pack is brutal, and they will try to bash us out of rhythm. If our hearts click and we hold the ball, we can win. Manly... Like, if your halves click, well, we saw them play in that preseason game, and they did not look good together at all. I just don't think the Raiders should be losing this. But the reason why Manly could win is on the back of the Raiders having that down year compared to their up and down year. They had an up year last year, they had a down year before, they had up year the year before that. Like, they're just an up and down team, and this is their down year based off of that trajectory. So I guess if it's based off of that, then sure, Manly can win. But if we're talking what should be happening, this should just simply be a Raiders win. Like, it really should be. So we'll see how that one does pan out. I'm pretty confident to go with Canberra, but there's apparently a reason why Manly are the $1.91 to $1.93 favourites there over the Raiders, which is basically just 50-50. But with that being said, it is still just in favour of Manly. Scott says last year it was a pick'em game. Yeah, well, it's a new year and new teams, and I don't feel like Manly improved their team, whilst I think the Raiders didn't necessarily regress their team, but it's still waiting to see whether it's an improvement. Olmec says drop Luke Brooks and put Walsh at 6. I feel like you can keep Brooks on the bench. It's a 6-man bench. You may as well keep Brooks on the bench, but I would start Joe Walsh on the 6, yeah. I would. Joe Walsh is their future. Joe Walsh is 100% their future. But there we go, guys. That's the Manly versus the Raiders game. Let's get into the final. I've really gone in-depth in regards to this stream, man. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes now. So I'll try and get this one done in the next 20 minutes. But we have absolutely gone in-depth for this one. Usually we go for about an hour. This has gone for quite some time. But let's get into the final game, which is the Redcliffe Dolphins versus the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. Jump into our tipping competition in the pinned comment. This is pretty much the last day you'd really want to get into it, because if you miss out, then you'll miss out in the third game, then you'll miss out on 5 games if you don't get in by Friday, you'll miss out by 7 games if you don't get in by Saturday, and then you'll miss out on the entire first 8 games of the round of the season if you don't get in by Sunday. So You've missed 2 games, but that's fine. If you miss 8 games, that'd be concerning. So get into that tipping competition in the pinned comment. But okay, the Redcliffe Dolphins versus South Sydney Rabbitohs. This is at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. The Dolphins come this season off the back of a year where they could attack like crazy, but they couldn't defend for absolute shit. They would win games 36-30, or they would lose games 38-28, or 38-26. They would lose games scoring 36 points, 40 points kind of deal. That is this Dolphins team, but they could also go and win by 50 points as well against teams that you would expect them to go and win by that much amount against. But with that being said, that was a regularity for them. They are such a inconsistent team, so inconsistent, but consistent in regards to the way their games play out. They will give up points, but they will score a lot of points. But they're inconsistent in regards to, will they score more points or they concede more points? That's just how the Dolphins have been in this last year. Whilst the South Sydney Rabbitohs, last year was a throwaway year. They had so many injuries. Players were completely out of the game. 280 or so collective injuries across the year. It was dreadful, man. They had so many ridiculous amount of injuries, which was so disappointing for them. They still ended up finishing in a relative position of 14th position on equal 5th with the Tigers on 24, and the Tigers had the least amount of injuries last year. So they did still finish 6 points away from that last place. And I think they'd taken 9-15 year with a minus 181 differential compared to what it could have been with how many injuries that they did have. But they've also had quite a few injuries throughout the years. It's not like it's just a one-off kind of deal for them. But hopefully it does change this year. Now for the Dolphins, their fullback is Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. The wingers are Jermaine Asako and Selwyn Cobbo. Centres of Jake Averillo and Herbie Farnworth. Got a 5'8" of Cody Nikorima and Isai Katoa, who was the captain. Then the front row forward is Tom Gilbert and Thomas Flagler, with the number 9 being Kurt Donahue. Back row, Canelli Lemielu and Kulikafu Finifuyaki, with the 13 being Morgan Knowles. Then the interchange is Bradley Schneider, Oren Keeley, Felice Kafusi, Trey Fuller, Sebastian Stewart and Brent Wolf, with reserves Lewis Simons, Tavita Nafahu, and Brian Puniu, with a coach as Christian Wolf. This 1 through 5 is spectacular. You'd argue it's the best 1 through 5 in the competition. Miso, unbelievable fullback, does a fantastic job in the centres for Queensland as well. Would be the fullback if Reece Walsh or Callum Ponga wasn't there, and Hamiso would do just as great of a job there for the Queenslanders. He is so fast, he's so electric, and defensively he's not bad. I wouldn't say that he's a defensive weak link in this team, but the 2 through 5 definitely are. Jermaine Asako can give up points, he can score plenty though, and obviously he's their conversion kicker. Jake Averillo, very speedy, very fast, can score points, but not great defense, and Averillo, Isako, that side is very defensively weak. Herbie Farnworth is a very good defender. He's very strong, probably one of the best probably the best defender in their back line overall. And Selwyn Cobbo is not necessarily strong on defense. So Farnworth is going to have to really tell Selwyn what he needs to do. Farnworth is 100% going to have to say to Selwyn, you stick out on your damn well wing, unless there's an obvious one, do not come in. Because Farnworth and Cobbo should be a really strong centre wing pairing, but Cobbo just needs to stick out in his wing, and it just needs to not have those brain farts in defence, because Farnworth is a great defender. So that 1 through 5 is exceptional. The halves, I worry though. Nikorima, he's okay. Isai Katoa was very good last year. Do these guys work together? I don't know on a consistent level, attacking wise. Sure, they do work together. But, they can be very hot and cold too, very hit and miss, where they can be quite lethargic at times, but they can also have some really big moments despite having an overall lethargic game. The halves should be good, but Nikorima and Katoa working together on the 27-round season, 24 rounds with the 3 buys, is something to still keep an eye on. I feel like it's still something to keep an eye on. Isai Katoa needs to take that next step up now. He had a really good year last year. Take that next step up and be a clear top 5 halfback in the game. That's what he needs to do this year. He didn't look great for Tonga. I didn't see much at all from him from that standpoint. And I still do look at those halves and say, are we going to see enough out of them overall? When they're getting as much attack in, I'm not complaining, but are we going to see enough out of them overall in regards to the attack? And then we go in regards to the halves on a consistent level is what I should say there. And then we're going to go to the forwards here. That might be a controversial opinion, mind you, but you'll see what I mean when the season starts. And then the front row forwards of Tom Gilbert and Thomas Flegler. This is a very strong partnership here, but both are coming off of serious long-term injuries as well in Tom Gilbert and Flegler. Flegler, we didn't even know would come back into the competition at one point. He had a good game against the Gold Coast Titans. They lost 24-12 in that preseason game, but Flegler scored a try in that game, so that's a great sign for him. And Tom Gilbert was playing Queensland when he obviously got injured. Both these guys are really, really good, fit and healthy, so hopefully they trust their bodies again and they're raring to go. Kurt Donahue in the 9 is a little bit how you going. I'm not too convinced in that. Love him for Fiji when he's playing, I think, the 6 for Fiji. I think he's the 6 with Brendan Wakeham, the 7, if I'm not mistaken. I think Donahue is the 6. Love him there. Not too convinced in the number 9 here for the Dolphins on the NRL level. And then the back of Canelli Lemielu and Finifuiaki is okay. They both need to step up this year. It's just as simple as that. The 13 of Morgan Knowles, don't know a huge amount about him. He's an Englishman. Come across, how young is he? He is, oh, true, okay. So he is, I know he's a big-time player for the England team, but he is, 28? Yeah, about 28 years old. If he was born in 98, I think it was. Shit. How old was he? 96. So I'm 94. I'm 31. Yes, he'd be like 29 years old. Going on 30 years old this year. I think he's well established over there in the Super League, but we'll see him really get going here for the Dolphins and overall forwards from Super League teams and English teams are usually going to get the job done. And then the interchange of Bradley Schneider, Keely, Kafusi's all solid. Trey Fuller. Look, Sebastian Sewer is my up-and-comer for the Dolphins this year. Love to see him get a spot on that interchange. This Dolphins team probably is going to be the same team you expect from last year to this year. I feel like they'll give up a lot of points, but they'll score a lot of points too, and it'll just come down to if they can score more. It just comes down to if they can score more. Now, for the Rabbitohs, on the other hand, their fullback is Jai Gray, with wingers being Alex Johnson and Campbell Graham, centres of Latrell Mitchell and Jack Whiten. 5'8" is Cody Walker, with the halfback being Ashton Ward. Front row forwards are Tavita Totola and Keon Kolomatangi, who is off the Dragons next year. Bronson Garlick is the number 9, with the back row being David Fafita and Ewan Aiken. 13, Cameron Murray, who is the captain. Then you go to the interchange, Peter Malmozelis, Tallis Duncan, Lachlan Hubner, Sean Kepi, Jaden Sullivan, and Moala Graham Talfa, where the reserves Liam LeBlanc, Thomas Fletcher, and Bailey Bentley Harpy, who I actually don't mind as a player. Wayne Bennett is the coach. Very, very strong Rabbitohs team, minus the halves. The 1 through 5, incredible. Jai Gray knocking on the door of a Queensland gig, but there is some great fullbacks there limiting him in that regards. Alex Johnson, if he scores 3 tries this week, will go into the all-time try scorer as the number 1. He needs a hat-trick this week against the Dolphins to get that, and knowing the Dolphins, it is entirely possible here for Alex Johnson to do that. Latrell Mitchell and Jack Whiten in the centres there is just one of the most damaging centre partnerships that you're going to see in this competition, and Campbell Graham, injury-free, is one of the best wingers/centres in the game. That 1 through 5, there is not a single complaint that I have about it. Very solid, very... they should be strong defensively as well. Campbell Graham, Jack Whiten, good defensively. Trell Mitchell and Alex Johnson should be great defensively. Jai Gray should be doing his job. So I like it in regards to the attack and in regards to the defense. I'm going to skip the halves for the time being. We're going to go to the forwards. Tavita Totola and Kolomatangi. I don't know if I would say Kolomatangi is the leader here as much as he should be, but and how heavy is he going to be this year in regards to being that leadership role here? He needs to be that leader because Tavita Totola is not at that level. Kolomatangi should have a good year. He should, but again, he's off to the Dragons next year. I do feel like this prop department is probably one of the more underwhelming partnerships of the entire team as a collective, and I just want to see Kolomatangi take another step up this year and really ensure that he is the leader compared to Tavita Totola, and then they can figure out the problems next year with the Rabbitohs. But no, Payne Haas comes in, so there's no problems there. Bronson Garlick in the 9's okay. Obviously, Brandon Smith is injured, which is a frustrating one. Surprised that Malmozelis doesn't come straight in. But they got Bronson Garlick across from the Storm. He is their starting 9. It's okay. Back row for Fafita and Ewan Aiken is incredible with David Fafita, but Ewan Aiken, not what he once was, but still Ewan Aiken, very solid play in the back row. And the Cameron Murray, injury-free. He only played 1 game last season. injury-free is one of the best 13s in the game, and look, realistically, you're never having any concerns with him. So the forwards are strong, but I feel like next year is what really takes them to that next level with Payne. I do have still questions about Tafita Tola and Kolomatangi as a front row forward pairing. Their bench, Mamazelis is good. Talis Duncan, great off the back row. I'm surprised that he doesn't start over Ewan Aiken, though. I would have probably preferred Talis Duncan in over Ewan Aiken. Hubner, okay. Kepi, okay. Jaden Sullivan, okay. Myler Graham, Telfer, okay. The bench is okay. The bench is okay. I like Mamazelis and I do love Talis Duncan. The bench overall is okay. But I definitely would have put Talis Duncan in over Ewan Aiken for mine. I don't think Ewan Aiken is the guy that he once was, and Talis should be starting back row for mine. And then the key point that I did skip over before is the halves. Cody Walker is the 5'8", and Ashton Ward is the halfback. I believe Jamie Humphries might be suspended for the first couple of games. Jamie Humphries will come in. It still doesn't give you an ultimate sense of belief in this team. When it comes to the Rabbitohs winning a premiership, be it this year, be it next year, but the year after, I don't know if these guys are going to be the guys. And even so much to say Jamie Humphries as well. And then if you're putting Jamie Humphries 7 and Ashton Wood 6 after Cody Walker goes, I don't know what happens there. I think you need to look at halves long term because Cody Walker is getting on. He's still ill-disciplined. You're never going to change him as a player. He is what he is now. He is getting on. I think you need to start looking at that for next year after kind of deal because I don't think we're going to see any form of consistency out of Cody Walker this year. His best 5-8 days are definitely behind him. And Ashton Wood, young, I haven't seen enough out of him to really be convinced that he's going to be that next guy as well. And I also think that Jamie Humphries has had his good moments, but I haven't seen enough out of him to actually convince me that he's the next guy as well. So the halves are the biggest question mark. That's great you got Payne Haas coming in. But you need good halves to get the ball to the front rowers, and the hooker actually probably plays more of a role with the props overall. So forget that. But the halves are the ones that need to get that electric background of Jai Gray, Alex Johnson, Latrell Mitchell, Jack White, and Campbell Graham the good ball. You know, it just the halves need to be the ones to get them to that, and I just don't know if I'm convinced overall on that halves pairing. But like for like between these two teams, I do probably like this Rabbitohs team better. I do, but I just have so many concerns in regards to the halves that it's making me feel like I do kind of want to tip the Dolphins here. But the Rabbitohs looks good in the preseason as well. They beat the full-strength Dragons, and then they beat the full-strength Dragons, and then they, with a much weaker team, and then they went and won very, very convincingly against Manly. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I am actually going to take the Rabbits here. They're the underdogs too. I find that crazy. I do. I find that crazy. They are the underdogs here, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. They're 37%. People are tipping them as well. Dolphins $1.84, $2 for the Rabbitohs. It's very even. I probably would have liked $1.90, $1.90. I think this can go either way. It can go either way here, and I feel like the game, this was a very early season game. Well, it was meant to be a very early season game last year, but then the cyclone impacted it, I believe. 16-14 to the Rabbitohs in the first game. I think that was... Am I mistaken? Oh, no, that's right. It was switched to Sydney instead. So, yeah, 2-point win there for the Rabbitohs in round 1 last year. And then when they played again, it was 50-28, and that's a prime example of the Dolphins, man. Scoring a lot of points, conceded a ridiculous amount of points as well. 50-28. I just feel like that was at the worst point of the year, though, for the Rabbitohs, when they had all those injuries. So, look, I am going to do it. I'm going to take the Rabbitohs. I take the Rabbits. I'm going to back in Alex Johnson for Hattie. I'm going to do it. I'm going to back in Alex Johnson for Hattie to break the try-scoring record at Suncorp Stadium. I would like for it to be in Sydney. It would be really nice for him. When is there... I'm sure the next game will be in Sydney for the Rabbitohs. It's against the Roosters. Okay. Yeah, well, if he scores 2 tries in this one, he'd only need 1 try against the Roosters to break the record. That is in round 2. Yeah, next Friday. That'll be good. So, yeah, look, I'm going to take the Rabbitohs in an upset there. And that overall wraps up my tips with Storm, Roosters, Panthers by 2, Sharks, Raiders, and the Panthers. Josie Sutherland says thoughts on Newey. Was it a fluke or nah? Well, I tipped the Knights. I don't think it was against the Cowboys, who were predicted to be in the bottom of the table this year. So I wouldn't expect them to go and win a comp or even be in top 8 consideration. But they played decently well against a Cowboys team that are expected to be down quite low on the table. Other Bunny says, I don't know what Wayne is thinking about Ewan Aiken over Tallis Duncan and Bronson over Mamo. I don't mind Bronson over Mamo. I feel like Mamazelis is going to be that backup 14 to the Brandon Smith 9 regardless, so just keep him in that consistent role. You don't want to change too much to your team. So I don't mind Bronson starting 9 with Mamazelis to come in that 14th position. Because again, when Brandon Smith comes back, it'll be him 9 and Mamo in the 14. Other Bunny says, Ashton Ward gives me like rookie Luke Keary vibes. That's a wild statement. Harrison says, sad loss for India later today. Yeah, thank you, Harrison. Only issue is that India don't play later on today. It's New Zealand versus South Africa. Mr. Mojo says up the fence for this one. Look, I get it. I can understand. It's a 50-50 game for mine. It really is. It's 50-50. I'm just going to lean with the Rabbitohs with guys like Trell and Cameron Murray and David Fafita and Kalamatangi and Jai Gray and Cody Walker and Ashton Ward. Let's hopefully see the best out of them this year, and hopefully they can get the job done. But they're definitely, the question marks are absolutely there still. Desmond says, I hope he breaks it against the Roosters, because I remember Roosters fans last year talking so much shit because he didn't break it against them at the end of the last year. Well, as if he was getting the hat-trick against the Roosters at the end of last year. As if that was ever happening. But anyway, guys, I've been going for 2 hours, man. We've done a 5 game for 2 hours. I definitely need to limit that in future. But I went well in depth, and I hope you did enjoy. Obviously, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. If you prefer, let me actually know in the comment section, not in the chat, in the comment section, if you prefer, once this video goes up, guys, comment on the video itself saying if you prefer me doing these long, in-depth, 2 hour long tipping streams where we actually analyze the entirety of the game. Where it's live, or would you prefer me to do like a 20-minute, quick summary of what I think all the games would go like while I'm walking around here in Ho Chi Minh or in Philippines or in India or wherever I am at the time of the year. So, yeah, bro's just yapping. Are we muted? I'm not too sure. So, guys, please next time, please provide context. I thought I might have been muted. But anyway, that's going to do it here for today. So, if you haven't joined the tipping group, join the tipping competition. Whoever wins will win a merchandise package of their team. If you're coming and catching this video late, then I will put the timestamps for each individual game in the description, which will come up on the screen for you to click on to whenever you want it to see. But all right, guys, I will see you later on tonight for New Zealand versus South Africa in a T20 World Cup semi-final, but also tomorrow for the first game of the round, which is the Melbourne Storm taking on the Parramatta Eels. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.